please rise as we are led in prayer this morning by Chuck Kinder, who's a lay pastor in Charleston, West Virginia, and then please remain standing as we are led in the pledge this morning by the senator from Mercer, Pastor Kinder.
Shall we pray? In the rush of all the important business before us, we pause to acknowledge you, O Lord. We are reminded the psalmist says, "Except the Lord build the house, they labor in vain that build it. Except the Lord watch the city, the watchman waketh but in vain. Blessed is the nation whose God is the Lord." We are especially thankful for these men and women in the West Virginia Senate and the support staff that help them. We thank you for their talents that they bring to this task. We thank you for their willingness to serve our people in this way. We pray that they would seek your guidance, follow your leading to do the important work before them. We pray especially for our teachers and school service personnel in the schools of West Virginia. These are the people who surround our children and our grandchildren each day. We pray for your peace and protection upon them all. We pray for unity among our leaders and a spirit of cooperation throughout their branches of government here at this important time. We ask your blessing upon the people of West Virginia and pray that you would guide and lead and direct the efforts of these elected representatives as they lay the foundation of our future steps. But most of all, we pray your will be done. Nothing more, nothing less, and nothing else. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Thank you, Pastor. The senator from Mercer County.
Thank you, Mr. President. With those in the chamber and our guests in the gallery, please join me in salute to the great flag of the United States of America. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You may be seated. Reading of the Journal.
West Virginia Legislature Senate Journal, February 22nd, 2018. The Senate met at 11:05 a.m.
The junior senator from the 4th requests unanimous consent that further reading of the Journal be dispensed with and that it be approved as having been read. Is there objection? Chair hears none, so ordered. Introduction of guests. On behalf of the Senate, it is my pleasure to welcome our honorary pages for the day. Please stand and be recognized as your name is called. As guest of the senator from Preston, we have Alicia Taylor. As guest of the junior senator from the 8th, Harper Gambin, Kristen Metz, and Alexis Bailey. And as guest of the senator from Monongalia, we have Julia Barnes, Atticus Reese, Jacob West, Joshua McPherson, and Jeffrey Radcliffe. If they would all please rise in the Senate, give them a warm welcome. Be seated. Further introductions. You can be seated. Further introductions. The senator from Ohio County.
Thank you, Mr. President. It's my pleasure on behalf of the West Virginia Academy of Family Physicians to introduce our two docs for today. We have two of them with us here today. We have in the rear of the chamber, we have Dr. Nicholas Robichek from Huntington, West Virginia, and Dr. Brian McCauley of Charleston, West Virginia. If they would both stand and the Senate make them welcome. Also, Mr. President, we're honored to have with us again today in the galleries all around in the red shirts, teachers and service personnel from all around the state. If they would all stand and the Senate give them a warm welcome.
Further introductions. Further introductions. Junior senator from the 8th.
Thank you, Mr. President. Three of our pages that are here today are being escorted by If they would stand once I announce their name: David Bailey, Stephanie Metz, and Monica Del May. If they would stand and the Senate make them welcome. Also, Mr. President, with us today in the gallery is a group from Kanawha County, schools that are in my district. I'd ask for them to stand and the Senate make them welcome also, please.
Senator from Monongalia County.
Thank you, Mr. President. Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of myself and the senator from Marion, we have our children here at the front of the room from East Fairmont Middle School, but we also have in the gallery with us the parents. And if they'll please rise as I say their name: Brad McPherson, Aaron West, and Chuck and Jenny Reese. If the Senate will please make them welcome. Thank you.
Senator from Tucker County.
Thank you, Mr. President. On behalf of my senior senator from the 14th, we have with us today our page, Alicia Taylor, sorry, but her mother, Tracy Taylor, is in the back gallery. If she would stand, and the members make her welcome.
The senator from Greenbrier County.
Thank you, Mr. President. On behalf of the senator from Monroe, I'd like to introduce our Honorary Secretary of State for the day, Whitney, if you'd please stand. Whitney is a James Monroe High School student who helped lead in a voter registration process this past year. She also served as my apprentice earlier in the session, and before we know it, she's going to be sitting right out here amongst us. Will the Senate please make Whitney feel welcome?
Further introductions? Further introductions. Communications from the House.
The Clerk of the House announced the passage by that body of engrossed committee substitute for House Bill 3061, encouraging mastery-based education through the Innovations in Schools program.
Message be received and referred to Committee on Education.
Engrossed committee substitute for House Bill 4207, authorizing an online application to receive a commission to act as a notary public and eliminating the bond requirement.
Message be received and referred to Committee on the Judiciary.
Engrossed committee substitute for House Bill 4368, relating to voluntary assignments of wages by state employees who have been overpaid.
Message be received and referred to Committee on the Judiciary.
Engrossed House Bill 4422, permitting permanent endowment funds of cemeteries to invest their principal in certain government bonds and corporate bonds.
Message be received and referred to the Committee on Finance.
Engrossed committee substitute for House Bill 4424, providing that the Ethics Act applies to certain persons providing services without pay to state elected officials.
Message be received and referred to the Committee on the Judiciary.
Engrossed committee substitute for House Bill 4451, creating the West Virginia Sentencing Commission.
Message be received and referred to the Committee on the Judiciary.
Engrossed committee substitute for House Bill 4511, modifying bail requirements.
Message be received and referred to the Committee on the Judiciary.
Engrossed House Bill 4617, clarifying where a charge of DUI may be brought against an individual.
Message be received and referred to the Committee on the Judiciary.
Engrossed committee substitute for House Bill 4618, relating to the authority of the Division of Protective Services.
Message be received and referred to the Committee on the Judiciary.
Engrossed House Bill 4625, relating to allocating a portion of any general revenue surplus accruing after a fiscal year to the Public Employees Insurance Agency Financial Stability Fund.
Message be received and referred to the Committee on Finance. Further communications from the House?
No, sir.
Communications from the Executive?
There are none.
Reports from standing committees?
Your Committee on Government Organization has had under consideration Senate Bill 261, transferring certain powers and programs of West Virginia Affordable Housing Trust Fund to West Virginia Housing Development Fund, and reports back a committee substitute for same, with the recommendation that the committee substitute do pass, but under the original double committee reference, first be referred to the Committee on Finance. Respectfully submitted, C. Edward Gaunch, Chair.
Report will be received. Senior Senator from the 15th.
Thank you, Mr. President. Unanimous consent that we dispense with the second committee reference.
Which? Senior Senator from the 15th requests unanimous consent that Senate Bill's second reference to Committee on Finance for Senate Bill 261 be waived. Is there objection? Chair hears none, so ordered.
Your Committee on Government Organization has had under consideration Senate Bill 269, establishing 2018 Regulatory Reform Act, and reports back committee substitute for same, with the recommendation that the committee substitute do pass, but under the original double committee reference, first be referred to the Committee on the Judiciary. Respectfully submitted, C. Edward Gaunch, Chair.
Report will be received. The Senator from Ohio County.
Thank you, Mr. President. Requesting unanimous consent the bill be taken up for immediate consideration and read a first time prior to its second committee reference.
Is there objection? Chair hears none. Clerk will read the bill first time.
Committee substitute for Senate Bill 269, establishing 2018 Regulatory Reform Act. First reading of the bill.
Bill be advanced prior to its second committee reference to the Committee on the Judiciary.
Your Committee on the Judiciary has had under consideration committee substitute for Senate Bill 360, clarifying oil and gas permits not be on flat well royalty leases, and has amended same, and reports the same back with the recommendation that it do pass as amended. Respectfully submitted, Charles S. Trump IV, Chair.
Report will be received.
Your Committee on Government Organization has had under consideration Senate Bill 419, establishing classification and base salaries of certain civilian employees of West Virginia State Police Forensic Laboratory, and reports back a committee substitute for same, with the recommendation that the committee substitute do pass, but under the original double committee reference, first be referred to the Committee on Finance. Respectfully submitted, C. Edward Gaunch, Chair.
Report will be received. The Senator from Ohio County.
Thank you, Mr. President. Requesting unanimous consent the bill be taken up for immediate consideration and read a first time prior to its second committee reference.
Is there objection? Chair hears none. Clerk will read the bill first time.
Committee substitute for Senate Bill 419, establishing classification and base salaries of certain civilian employees of West Virginia State Police Forensic Laboratory. First reading of the bill.
Bill be advanced and referred to Committee on Finance.
Your Committee on the Judiciary has had under consideration committee substitute for Senate Bill 443, terminating parental rights when certain conditions are met, and has amended same, now on second reading, having been read a first time and referred to the Committee on the Judiciary on February 21, 2018, and reports the same back with the recommendation that it do pass as amended. Respectfully submitted, Charles S. Trump IV, Chair.
Report will be received.
Your Committee on the Judiciary has had under consideration Senate Bill 504, excluding seasonal amusement park workers from definition of employee, and reports back a committee substitute for same, with the recommendation that the committee substitute do pass. Respectfully submitted, Charles S. Trump IV, Chair.
Report will be received.
Your Committee on the Workforce has had under consideration Senate Bill 506, deregulating persons who perform work on heating, ventilating, and cooling systems, and reports back a committee substitute for same, with the recommendation that the committee substitute do pass, but under the original double committee reference, first be referred to the Committee on Government Organization. Respectfully submitted, Chandler Swope, Chair.
Report will be received. The Senator from Ohio County.
Thank you, Mr. President. Requesting unanimous consent the bill be taken up for immediate consideration and read a first time prior to its second committee reference.
Is there objection? Chair hears none. Clerk will read the bill a first time.
Committee substitute for Senate Bill 506, deregulating persons who perform work on heating, ventilating, and cooling systems. First reading of the bill.
Bill be advanced and referred to the Committee on Government Organization.
Your Committee on the Judiciary has had under consideration Senate Bill 567, including treason, murder, armed robbery, and organized crimes for which communications can be intercepted, and reports back to committee substitute for same, with the recommendation that committee substitute do pass. Respectfully submitted, Charles S. Trump IV, Chair.
Report will be received.
Your Committee on the Judiciary has had under consideration Senate Bill 568, requiring participants in motor vehicle alcohol test and lock program complete same within 12 months, and reports back to committee substitute for same, with the recommendation that the committee substitute do pass. Respectfully submitted, Charles S. Trump IV, Chair.
Report will be received.
Your Committee on Finance has had under consideration committee substitute for Senate Bill 572, creating farm-to-school grant program, now on second reading, having been read a first time and referred to the Committee on Finance on February 21, 2018, and reports the same back with the recommendation that it do pass. Respectfully submitted, Craig Blair, Chair.
The report will be received.
Your Committee on Finance has had under consideration Senate Bill 584, finding certain claims against state to be moral obligations of state, and reports the same back with the recommendation that it do pass. Respectfully submitted, Craig Blair, Chair.
The report will be received.
Your Committee on Transportation and Infrastructure has had under consideration Senate Bill 589, relating to issuance of personalized plates for antique motor vehicles, and reports back to committee substitute for same, and committee substitute for Senate Bill 590, providing special license plate for curing childhood cancer, and reports back to committee substitute for same, with the recommendation that the two committee substitutes do pass, but under the original double committee references, first be referred to the Committee on Finance. Respectfully submitted, Gregory L. Boso, Chair.
Reports will be received. The senator from Ohio County.
Thank you, Mr. President. Requesting unanimous consent, the bill be taken up for immediate consideration and read a first time prior to its second committee reference.
Senator from Ohio County requests unanimous consent that Senate Bill 589 be read a first time. Clerk will read the bill first time.
Committee substitute for Senate Bill 589, relating to issuance of personalized plates for antique motor vehicles. First reading of the bill.
Bill be advanced, referred to Committee on Finance.
And the second bill. Committee substitute for Senate Bill 590, providing special license plate for curing childhood cancer. First reading of the bill.
Senator from Ohio County.
Thank you, Mr. President. Requesting unanimous consent, the bill be taken up for immediate consideration and read a first time prior to its second committee reference.
Bill be referred to Committee on Finance.
Your Committee on the Judiciary has had under consideration committee substitute for Senate Bill 597, prohibiting individuals convicted of domestic violence misdemeanor from conducting private investigation business, and has amended same, now on second reading, having been read a first time and referred to the Committee on the Judiciary on February 22, 2018, and reports the same back with the recommendation that it do pass as amended. Respectfully submitted, Charles S. Trump IV, Chair.
Report will be received.
Your Committee on Energy, Industry, and Mining has had under consideration Senate Bill 600, relating to powers and duties of PSC, and reports back to committee substitute for same, with the recommendation that the committee substitute do pass, but under the original double committee reference, first be referred to the Committee on Government Organization. Respectfully submitted, Randy E. Smith, Chair.
Report will be received. The senator from Ohio County. Senator from Ohio County.
Thank you, Mr. President. Request unanimous consent the bill be taken up for immediate consideration and read a first time prior to its second committee reference.
Is there objection? Chair hears none. Clerk will read the bill a first time.
Committee substitute for Senate Bill 600 relating to powers and duties of PSC. First reading of the bill.
Bill be advanced and referred to the Committee on Government Organization.
Your Committee on Transportation and Infrastructure has had under consideration Senate Bill 616, establishing maximum gross weight for certain wood-bearing trucks, and reports back to committee substitute for same, with the recommendation that the committee substitute do pass, but under the original double committee reference, first be referred to the Committee on the Judiciary. Respectfully submitted, Gregory L. Boso, Chair.
Report will be received. The senator from Morgan County.
Thank you, Mr. President. I request unanimous consent that the second reference to the Committee on Judiciary with respect to Senate Bill 616 be dispensed with.
Is there objection? Chair hears none. So ordered.
Your Committee on the Judiciary has had under consideration Senate Joint Resolution 10, Disabled Veteran Exemption from Ad Valorem Property Tax Amendment, and reports back to committee substitute for same, with the recommendation that the committee substitute be adopted, but under the original double committee reference, first be referred to the Committee on Finance. Respectfully submitted, Charles S. Trump IV, Chair.
Report will be received. The senator from Ohio County.
Thank you, Mr. President. Request unanimous consent the bill be taken up for immediate consideration and read the resolution be taken up for immediate consideration and read a first time prior to its second committee reference.
Is there objection? Chair hears none. Clerk will read the resolution.
Committee substitute for Senate Joint Resolution 10, Disabled Veteran Exemption from Ad Valorem Property Tax Amendment. First reading of the resolution.
Resolution will be advanced and referred to Committee on Finance.
Your Committee on the Judiciary has had under consideration Senate Concurrent Resolution 39, originating in committee, requesting the Joint Committee on the Judiciary study the feasibility and potential implementation of a process designed to create better coordination between law enforcement agencies in finding missing persons and identifying found remains, and reports the same back with the recommendation that it be adopted. Respectfully submitted, Charles S. Trump IV, Chair.
Report will be received. Senator from Morgan County.
Thank you, Mr. President. I request unanimous consent that the originating resolution be referred to the Committee on Rules.
Is there objection? Chair hears none. So ordered. Senior Senator from the 8th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I ask unanimous consent to return to consideration of Senate Bill 506.
Is there objection? Chair hears none.
Mr. President, I ask unanimous consent that to dispense with the second committee reference to government organization for Senate Bill 506.
Is there objection? Chair hears none. So ordered. Further committee report, standing committee reports?
No, sir.
Reports from select committees?
There are none.
Introduction of bills?
There are none.
Resolutions?
Senate Concurrent Resolution 38 by Senators Seipolt, Beach, Klein, and Boso, urging Congress reassess federal definition of industrial hemp.
Under the rules of the Senate, the resolution will lie over 1 day.
Senate Resolution 51 by Senators Smith and Klein, urging Congress reinstate separation of commercial and investment banking functions.
Under the rules of the Senate, the resolution will lie over 1 day. Further resolutions?
No, sir.
Motions? Petitions?
There are none.
Unfinished business?
Senate Concurrent Resolution 34, requesting DNR study deer hunting in West Virginia.
Resolution will be referred to the Committee on Natural Resources.
Senate Concurrent Resolution 35, naming Constable Joseph H. Davidson Memorial Bridge.
Resolution will be referred to Committee on Transportation and Infrastructure.
Senate Concurrent Resolution 36, requesting study of public schools prevention and response to violent acts against students and personnel.
Resolution will be referred to Committee on Education and then to the Committee on Rules.
Senate Concurrent Resolution 37, naming the Sheriff John E. White Memorial Road.
Resolution will be referred to Committee on Transportation and Infrastructure. Further unfinished business?
No, sir.
Bills on third reading.
Engrossed committee substitute for Senate Bill 30, relating generally to hunting with dogs. Third reading of the bill.
The question before the Senate is, shall the bill pass? Is there discussion? The senator from Morgan County.
Thank you, Mr. President. The committee substitute for Senate Bill 30 amends the state code by adding to it a new section designated as Chapter 20, Article 2, Section 5I, and that relates to using leased dogs for tracking mortally wounded deer or bear. And then the bill also amends an existing section of code 2216. The purpose of the bill is to allow hunters and trackers to use a leashed dog to track and retrieve a mortally wounded deer or bear. And the tracker or hunter must have a valid hunting license, and the bill requires that he or she have all applicable hunting stamps and that the applicable hunting laws be followed. The bill also removes some antiquated language about what the DNR does with dogs that are chasing or worrying deer. I'll be happy to answer questions. Otherwise, I urge passage of the bill.
Further discussion? Not the question before the Senate is, shall the bill pass? All those in favor will vote yea. Those opposed will vote nay. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the results. On this question there being 33 yeas, 0 nays, 1 absent and not voting, more than the majority of those present and voting having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill passed. Clerk will communicate the action of the Senate to the House.
Engrossed Senate Bill 112, clarifying that natural resource police officers' subsistence allowance is pensionable. Third reading of the bill.
Question before the Senate is, shall the bill pass? Is there discussion? The senior senator from the 6th.
Thank you, Mr. President. This bill would provide that subsistence allowance that natural resources officers receive in addition to their base salary could be included in calculating their pensions. The subsistence allowance is paid to such officers to go toward their required telephone service, dry cleaning, or required uniforms and meal expenses while performing their regular duties in their area of primary assignment in the amount of $60 per biweekly pay. And this just brings them up in line with all other officers in the state. I would entertain questions. Otherwise, I urge passage, Mr. President.
Further discussion? If not, all those in favor will vote yea. Those opposed will vote nay. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the results. On this question there being 33 yeas, 0 nays, 1 absent and not voting, more than the majority of those present and voting having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill passed. Clerk will communicate the action of the Senate to the House.
Engrossed Committee Substitute for Senate Bill 307, declaring fundraising on state highway or roadway by volunteer fire department is not obstruction or nuisance. Third reading of the bill.
Question before the Senate is, shall the bill pass? The senator from Morgan County.
Thank you, Mr. President. The committee substitute for Senate Bill 307 amends one single section of the code. It's in Chapter 17, which is our Motor Vehicle Code, Article 16, Section 1. The bill adds new language to clarify certain activities are not deemed to be obstructions of the highways, and that the activities permitted are fundraising by volunteer fire departments, including boot drives and bucket brigades, and similar fundraising activities by school-approved or sponsored groups, charitable organizations, as regulated by the provisions of Chapter 29, Article 26 of the Code, nonprofit service organizations within the boundaries of a municipality. They do not constitute obstruction or nuisance. Their proviso is that the fundraising activity has to be conducted during daylight hours and at a signal-controlled intersection or an intersection that requires all vehicles to stop, or at a location approved for such activity by the municipal law enforcement agency. Be happy to try to answer questions. Otherwise, I urge the bill's passage.
Further discussion? Further discussion? Not all those in favor will vote yea. Those opposed will vote nay. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the results. On this question there being 33 yeas, 0 nays, 1 absent and not voting, more than a majority of those present and voting having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill passed. The clerk will communicate the action of the Senate to the House.
Engrossed committee substitute for Senate Bill 359, authorizing Supreme Court established curricula for mental hygiene commissioners and certain magistrates. Third reading of the bill.
Question before the Senate is, shall the bill pass? Is there discussion? Senator from Morgan County.
Thank you, Mr. President. The committee substitute for Senate Bill 359 changes the code slightly in Chapter 27 relating to the curriculum and schooling requirements for people who are appointed by the judiciary to serve as mental hygiene commissioners. Under current law, there was a specific number of days as a training requirement. That is stricken from the bill, and it allows the Supreme Court, which oversees by rule and by constitutional provision the adjudication of mental hygiene cases, allows the Supreme Court to set the curriculum and the training requirements for people who will serve as mental hygiene commissioners. Be happy to try to answer questions. Otherwise, I urge passage of the bill.
Further discussion? If not, all those in favor will vote yea. Those opposed will vote nay. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the results. On this question, there being 33 yeas, 0 nays, 1 absent and not voting, more than a majority of those present and voting having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill passed. Senator from Ohio County.
Mr. President, I move the bill be made effective from passage and request unanimous consent the roll call used on passage of the bill be used to make it so effective.
Senator from Ohio County moves that the bill be made effective from passage and request unanimous consent that the roll call used on passage be used to make it so effective. Is there objection? Chair hears none. On this question there being 33 yeas, 0 nays, 1 absent and not voting, more than 2/3 of those elected having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill effective from passage. The clerk will communicate the action of the Senate to the House.
Engrossed committee substitute for Senate Bill 467, relating generally to public defender services. Third reading of the bill.
Question before the Senate is, shall the bill pass? Is there discussion? The Senator from Morgan County.
Thank you, Mr. President. The committee substitute for Senate Bill 467 makes a number of changes in the law as it relates to the public defender system. From a technical standpoint, it would amend and reenact 2 sections of the code. They're both in Chapter 29, Article 21, Section 6 and 13A, and it adds a new section to the code, which would be designated as 2921, Section 9A. Under the current law, and this would not change, the Public Defender Services is an executive branch agency that processes vouchers from panel attorneys who are appointed by circuit courts to represent criminal defendants who are indigent or meet the criteria for appointed counsel, essentially that they can't afford to hire an attorney. Under the current law, judges have the initial authority to approve the vouchers that are submitted by these panel attorneys, and this bill would change that. The committee substitute would transfer that initial authority to review and approve vouchers submitted by panel attorneys from the circuit courts to the public defender services here in Charleston. It provides that panel attorneys can submit documentation in addition to their vouchers if PDS, Public Defender Services, rejects a voucher or reduces one. If PDS and panel attorney cannot reach an agreement as to the rejection or reduction of a voucher, then the bill directs the PDS and the panel attorney to a hearing before the appointing circuit judge to decide and make the final determination as to payment of the voucher or how much thereof should be paid. The committee substitute requires Public Defender Services to acknowledge the submission of a voucher and communicate that acknowledgement to the panel attorney who submits the voucher electronically. It requires panel attorneys to maintain keeping records in a manner that will enable the attorney to determine for any day the periods of time expended on behalf of any client and the total time expended on that day on behalf of all clients. It would prohibit public defender services from requiring attorneys to maintain or submit the actual start and finish times of work performed. All of this is as a result of new software, computer system that the Public Defender Services is using that I think went online this last calendar year. Under current code, panel attorneys are compensated $45 per hour for their work out of court and $65 per hour for their work in court, regardless of the type of case. This bill changes that. The committee substitute establishes the rate of $45 an hour for misdemeanors, and it's all work. Whether it's in court or out of court, it's $45. But with respect to work and felony cases, it increases the out-of-court work from $45 to $50 an hour and increases the in-court work from $65 to $70 an hour. It establishes a rate of $20 an hour for work that's performed by a paralegal rather than the current reimbursement of the amount the paralegal is paid by the attorney, up to a limit of $20 an hour. The committee substitute authorizes the Public Defender Services to enter into contracts to provide legal services in specialized areas of law other than criminal defense, such as mental hygiene, habeas corpus, or representing children in abuse and neglect proceedings. The bill would authorize the governor to borrow funds from the Revenue Shortfall Reserve Fund, that's rainy day fund, for the payment of attorney's fees up to $20 million, but to be repaid during the fiscal year in which the funds are borrowed with a supplemental appropriation without interest, and repaid within 180 days. That provision is effective only until January of 2020, and there's a sunset provision in it so that the legislature will be forced to re-examine it. The committee substitute authorizes the executive director of PDS to promulgate emergency rules to implement the bill, and I think it'll be familiar to everybody in the body because this bill has been examined by both the Judiciary Committee and the Finance Committee. I'd be happy to try to answer questions. Otherwise, I urge the bill's passage.
Further discussion? Senator from Cabell County.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise in support of this bill, and let me just say very briefly today that some of the most dedicated attorneys in the state are those folks that represent our abused children, innocent parents in abuse and neglect cases, indigent defendants accused of a crime, may or may not be guilty. So I tip my hat to the people that do this type of appointed work. However, if you want the poster child for fraud, abuse, and neglect, look at the Public Defender Services system in the past. Biggest fraud in the state occurs under what will be soon the past system. And the PDS people, the administrative staff do great and have done well, but up until very recently, the threshold for fraud is, did the person bill more than 24 hours in a calendar day? If you were 23 and a half, you probably were okay. So this is, I commend my Judiciary Chair for working this bill again this year, died last year, and I urge passage.
Further discussion? The senator from Brooke County seeks recognition.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. Pursuant to Rule 43, I ask to be excused from voting on this bill. I'm an assistant prosecutor, and obviously we work in the court system with the public defenders, and so pursuant to that.
It's Chair's opinion that as your request is properly placed, and it's proper that you made the request. However, you are a member of a class and will be required to vote.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Further discussion? Not. All those in favor will vote yea. Those opposed will vote nay. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the results. On this question, there being 33 yeas, 0 nays, 1 absent and not voting, more than a majority of those present and voting having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill passed. The senator from Ohio County.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the bill be made effective from passage and request unanimous consent the roll call used on passage of the bill be used to make it so effective.
The senator from Ohio County moves that the bill be made effective from passage and requests unanimous consent that the roll call used on passage be used to make it so effective. Is there objection? Chair hears none. On this question, there being 33 yeas, 0 nays, 1 absent and not voting, more than 2/3 of those elected having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill effective from passage. Clerk will communicate the action of the Senate to the House.
Engrossed committee substitute for Senate Bill 491, establishing fee for expungement of certain criminal convictions. Third reading of the bill.
Question before the Senate is, shall the bill pass? Is there discussion? The senator from Morgan County.
Thank you, Mr. President. The committee substitute for Senate Bill 491 redirects and imposes special distribution of fees that are paid with the filing of a petition for expungement. Under the bill, if it becomes law, the $200 fee would be divided as follows: $90 to the West Virginia State Police Criminal History Fund, $40 for civil legal services for low-income persons, $20 for the Courthouse Facilities Improvement Fund, and $20 for the Domestic Violence Legal Services Fund. I'll be happy to try to answer any questions. Otherwise, I urge passage of the bill.
Further discussion? If not, all those in favor will vote yea. Those opposed will vote nay. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the results. On this question, there being 32 yeas, 0 nays, 2 absent and not voting, more than a majority of those present and voting having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill passed. Clerk will communicate the action of the Senate to the House.
Engrossed committee substitute for Senate Bill 493 relating to guarantee associations. Third reading of the bill.
Question before the Senate is, shall the bill pass? Is there discussion? The senator from Wood County.
Thank you, Mr. President. This bill updates Article 26A of the Insurance Code, known as the West Virginia Life and Health Insurance Guarantee Association Act, to maintain consistency with the National Association of Insurance Commissioners Life and Health Insurance Guarantee Association Model Act. It does so by repealing the West Virginia Health Maintenance Organization Guarantee Association Act, which is Article 26B of the Insurance Code, and making health maintenance organizations, or HMOs, subject to the West Virginia Life and Health Insurance Guarantee Association Act. The purpose of the Guarantee Association, created in Article 26A, is to protect or subject to certain limitations insurance policyholders and beneficiaries against failure in the performance of contractual obligations under life, health, and annuity policy plans or contracts because of the impairment or insolvency of a member insurer. To provide this protection, the Association of Member Insurers is created to pay benefits and continue coverages, and members of the association are subject to assessment to provide funds to carry out the purpose of Article 26A. The bill contains clarifications and updates, including changing the amount of assessments for long-term care insurance written by the impaired or insolvent insurer to more fairly distribute potential costs and provide stability for the guarantee funds. The National Association of Insurance Commissioners is the U.S. standard setting and regulatory support organization created and governed by the chief insurance regulators from the 50 states, the District of Columbia, and 5 U.S. territories. It published the Model Act on which the bill's revisions are based in the fourth quarter of 2017. Uniformity is vital to the state-based insurance regulations, and Mr. President, I urge passage of the bill.
Further discussion? If not, all those in favor will vote yea. Those opposed will vote nay. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the results. On this question, there being 32 yeas, 0 nays, 2 absent and not voting, more than a majority of those present and voting. Having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill passed. Clerk will communicate the action of the Senate to the House.
Engrossed committee substitute for Senate Bill 501 relating to accrued benefit of retirees and deputy sheriff retirement system. Third reading of the bill.
Question before the Senate is, shall the bill pass? Is there discussion? The senator from Upshur County.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 501 increases the multiplier in the pension annuity calculation for the deputy sheriff's retirement system from 2.25% to 2.5% for members who retire on or after July 1, 2018. The deputy sheriff's retirement system provides pension payments to retired or disabled deputy sheriffs. Under current law, the accrued benefit calculation takes 2.25% of a member's final average salary and multiplies that by years of service. The committee substitute for Senate Bill 501 modifies the accrued benefit calculation by raising the multiplier from 2.25% to 2.5%. This change brings the accrued benefit calculation more in line with the State Police Plan B, which uses a multiplier of 2.75%, the Emergency Medical Services Retirement System, which uses a multiplier of 2.75% for the first 20 years of service, and Municipal Police and Firefighters Retirement System, which uses a multiplier of 2.6%. The increase in pension benefits will not require an increase in contributions from employees or employers. I urge passage.
Further discussion? Further discussion? Not. All those in favor will vote yea. Those opposed will vote nay. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the results. On this question, there being 32 yeas, 0 nays, 2 absent and not voting, more than a majority of those present and voting. Having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill passed. Clerk will communicate the action of the Senate to the House.
Engrossed committee substitute for Senate Bill 535, dedicating increased court fees in criminal cases to fund training programs for law enforcement officers. Third reading of the bill.
The question before the Senate is, shall the bill pass? Is there discussion? The senator from Morgan County.
Thank you, Mr. President. The committee substitute for Senate Bill 535 amends one single section of the code. It is Chapter 30, Article 29, Section 4. Article 29 is law enforcement officer training and certification. The bill would raise a fee. Under current law, there's a $2 fee that's added to the usual court costs in criminal court proceedings involving a violation of any of the criminal statutes of the state, county, or municipality. And the current law requires a $2 fee to be added to that, including bonds posted for violation of criminal law. And the Law Enforcement Professional Standards Committee is to disburse those funds for funding of law enforcement entry-level training programs, professional development programs, and the certification of law enforcement officers, and to pay the expenses of the Governor's Committee on Crime, Delinquency, and Correction, or the subcommittee. This bill will raise the fee to $10, from $2 to $10. Check the bound volume here. It appears the last time this code section was amended was 1981. Be happy to try to answer questions. Otherwise, I urge passage of the bill.
Further discussion? Not. All those in favor will vote yea. Those opposed will vote nay. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? Has every member voted? So the clerk will close the machine, ascertain the result. On this question, there being 32 yeas, 0 nays, 2 absent and not voting, more than a majority of those present and voting. Having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill passed. The senator from Ohio County.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the bill be made effective for passage and request unanimous consent the roll call used on passage of the bill be used to make it so effective.
The senator from Ohio County moves that the bill be made effective from passage and requests unanimous consent that the roll call used on passage be used to make it so effective. Is there objection? Chair hears none. On this question, there being 32 yeas, 0 nays, 2 absent and not voting, more than 2/3 of those elected having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill effective from passage. The clerk will communicate the action of the Senate to the House.
Engrossed committee substitute for Senate Bill 549, creating felony offense of intimidation or harassment of certain persons that causes injury or loss to person or property. Third reading of the bill.
Question before the Senate is, shall the bill pass? Is there discussion? The senator from Morgan County.
Thank you, Mr. President. This bill was brought to us by the Kanawha County Prosecuting Attorney's Office. The bill would amend a single section of the code. It's Chapter 61, Article 5, Section 27. Article 5 crimes in Chapter 61 are crimes against public justice. Under current law, it is a misdemeanor to harass or intimidate a public employee, a juror, or witness in certain circumstances before to try to influence their action or to get them to fail to perform their duties. It is a felony under current law if somebody intimidates or threatens or harasses a juror or a judge or a public official after they've done a duty or taken action. This bill would make it equivalent in both cases as a felony. Be happy to try to answer questions. Otherwise, I urge the bill's passage.
Further discussion? If not, all those in favor will vote yea. Those opposed will vote nay. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the results. On this question, there being 32 yeas, 0 nays, 2 absent and not voting, more than a majority of those present and voting, having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill passed. Clerk will communicate the action of the Senate to the House.
Engrossed Senate Bill 576 relating to Patient Injury Compensation Fund. Third reading of the bill.
The question before the Senate is, shall the bill pass? Is there discussion? The senator from Morgan County.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Senate Bill 576 relates to the Patient Injury Compensation Fund. Members who were here a couple years ago will remember that we passed legislation designed to fund and close out, wind down that fund and its operations. This bill will continue that process. From a technical standpoint, it amends and reenacts 3 sections of the code. One is in Chapter 29, Article 12, Section 1A. 2 sections in Chapter 59 of the code, one in Article, both in Article 1, Section 11, and Section 29A. The main purpose of the bill is to continue the plan in place that we put in place a couple years ago to bring additional funding to this Patient Injury Compensation Fund to retire the remaining unfunded liabilities that the fund has and to allow it to be closed out. It provides that physicians be required to pay a biennial license fee of $125. That will go until December of 2021. Trauma centers assess $25 per patient. That goes until December of 2021. And there's also there's a filing fee required of plaintiffs in medical malpractice cases and the assessment against settlements of medical malpractice cases. You know, we, a couple years ago, with the legislation we passed, we barred all new claims after a certain date. And so this is just a matter now of the money necessary to liquidate any remaining liabilities of the fund. The bill provides that if there's money left over when that's wound out, then the money would revert to general revenue. Be happy to try to answer questions. Otherwise, I urge the bill's passage.
Is there further discussion? If not, all those in favor will vote yea. Those opposed will vote nay. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? Has every member voted? So the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the results. On this question, there being 32 yeas, 0 nays, 2 absent and not voting, more than a majority of those present and voting, having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill passed. Clerk will communicate the action of the Senate to the House. Further bills on third reading?
No, sir.
Bills on second reading?
Committee substitute for Senate Bill 275 relating to tax on purchases of intoxicating liquors. Second reading of the bill.
Are there amendments to the bill?
No, sir.
Bill be engrossed and advanced to third reading.
Committee substitute for Senate Bill 313 waiving occupational fees and licensing requirements for certain low-income individuals, military families, and young workers. Second reading of the bill.
Are there amendments to the bill?
No, sir.
Bill be engrossed and advanced to third reading.
Committee substitute for Senate Bill 420 transferring transferring safety and treatment program from DHHR to DMV. Second reading of the bill.
Are there amendments to the bill?
Yes, sir. Senators Trump and Rucker move to amend the bill on page 6, section 3, after line 130.
The senator from Morgan County.
Thank you, Mr. President. I request unanimous consent to explain the amendment in lieu of having it read.
Senator from Morgan requests unanimous consent to explain the amendments in lieu of having them read and that all amendments be considered as one. Is there objection? Chair hears none. Senator may proceed.
Thank you, Mr. President. The amendment corrects an oversight in that bill that we wanted to put in it when it was in committee, and it was this moves the safety and treatment program from the DHHR to the DMV, and the amendment, if adopted, will require the DMV to provide an impartial and expeditious grievance or appellate procedure for participants of the safety and treatment program to challenge an adverse decision. And it gives the DMV rulemaking authority. Be happy to try to answer any questions. Otherwise, I urge adoption of this amendment to the bill.
Further discussion? Further discussion? If not, the question before the Senate is adoption of the amendment as offered by the senator from Morgan. All those in favor will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. I declare the amendments adopted. Are there further amendments to the bill?
No, sir.
Not, the bill will be engrossed and advanced to third reading.
Committee substitute for Senate Bill 456, Physical Therapy Licensure Compact Act. Second reading of the bill.
Are there amendments to the bill?
No, sir.
Bill be engrossed and advanced to third reading.
Committee substitute for Senate Bill 490, relating to Revised Uniform Athlete Agents Act of 2015. Second reading of the bill.
Are there amendments to the bill?
Yes, sir. Senator Gaunch moved to amend the bill.
The senior senator from the 8th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I ask unanimous consent to explain the amendment in lieu of having it read.
Is there the senior senator from the 8th requests unanimous consent to explain the amendments in lieu of having them read and that all amendments be considered as one. Is there objection? Chair hears none. The senator may proceed.
Mr. President, these are grammatical and technical changes only, have nothing to do with the substantive effect of the bill. I urge passage.
Further discussion? If not, question before the Senate is adoption of the amendments as offered by the senior senator from the 8th. All those in favor will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. I declare the amendments adopted. Are there further amendments to the bill?
No, sir.
Not, the bill will be engrossed and advanced to third reading.
Committee substitute for Senate Bill 499, requiring 1 year of certain approved postgraduate clinical training for persons with foreign medical degrees. Second reading of the bill.
Are there amendments to the bill?
No, sir.
Bill be engrossed and advanced to third reading.
Committee substitute for Senate Bill 500, authorizing City of White Sulphur Springs to expend principal and interest from special interest-bearing fund. Second reading of the bill.
Are there amendments to the bill?
No, sir.
Bill be engrossed and advanced to third reading.
Committee substitute for Senate Bill 507, establishing Katherine Johnson Academy as magnet school programs at West Virginia colleges and universities.
The senator from Ohio County.
Thank you, Mr. President. Requesting unanimous consent the bill lie over 1 day, retaining its place on the calendar.
Is there objection? Chair hears none. So ordered.
Committee substitute for Senate Bill 521, requiring Chief Executive of Municipal Law Enforcement Agency be certified law enforcement officer. Second reading of the bill.
Are there amendments to the bill?
No, sir.
Bill be engrossed and advanced to third reading.
Committee substitute for Senate Bill 528, providing additional circuit judge for 19th Judicial Circuit. Second reading of the bill.
Are there amendments to the bill?
No, sir.
Bill be engrossed and advanced to third reading.
Senate Bill 539, increasing limit for settling claims against DOH. Second reading of the bill.
Are there amendments to the bill?
No, sir.
Bill be engrossed and advanced to third reading.
Senate Bill 545, relating to driving privileges and requirements for persons under 18.
Are there amendments to the bill? Senator from Ohio County.
Thank you, Mr. President. Requesting unanimous consent the bill lie over 1 day, retaining its place on the calendar.
Is there objection? Chair hears none. So ordered.
Committee substitute for Senate Bill 555, providing immunity from civil liability for qualified directors of certain governmental and nonprofit entities. Second reading of the bill.
Are there amendments to the bill?
Yes, sir. Senators Romano and Trump move to amend the bill on page 1, section 3, line 8, after the word she by inserting the words approved of, ratified.
Senator from Harrison County.
Mr. President, I request unanimous consent that I be permitted to explain the amendment in lieu of having it read.
Clerk has read the amendment, but the senator may proceed in terms of the explanation.
Well, I was a little late there. Thank you, sir. This is a very simple amendment. This bill attempts to codify a Supreme Court ruling regarding the liability of directors of nonprofit corporations While I'm not terribly excited by the bill, I think the amendment just simply brings the codification in line with the case. There were a few key words left out that would render such a director liable if the director approved or ratified the tortious conduct in question. I would recommend approval.
Further discussion? Not. Question before the Senator from Morgan.
Just to say, thank you, Mr. President, just to say that I agree with my distinguished colleague from Harrison. The addition of these words makes the statute consistent with the Supreme Court syllabus point. I urge adoption.
Further discussion? Not. The question before the Senate is adoption of the amendment as offered by the Senator from Harrison, the Senator from Morgan. All those in favor will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. Declare the amendment adopted. Are there further amendments to the bill?
No, sir.
Not. The bill will be engrossed and advanced to third reading.
Committee substitute for Senate Bill 561, increasing minimum contract price requiring execution of bond with respect to building or repairing school property. Second reading of the bill.
Are there amendments to the bill?
No, sir.
Bill will be engrossed and advanced to third reading.
Committee substitute for Senate Bill 562, allowing court's discretion to impose period of supervised release of defendant. Second reading of the bill.
Are there amendments to the bill?
No, sir.
Bill will be engrossed and advanced to third reading.
Senate Bill 566, relating to disability of pensions of municipal employees. Second reading of the bill.
Are there amendments to the bill?
No, sir.
Bill be engrossed and advanced to third reading.
Committee substitute for Senate Bill 573, relating generally to school calendars. Second reading of the bill.
Are there amendments to the bill?
No, sir.
Bill be engrossed and advanced to third reading.
Committee substitute for Senate Bill 574, relating to crime of misrepresentation of a military honors. Second reading of the bill.
Are there amendments to the bill?
No, sir.
Bill be engrossed and advanced to third reading.
Senate Bill 627, permitting local governments to access certain economic development project-related tax records. Second reading of the bill.
Are there amendments to the bill?
No, sir.
Bill be engrossed and advanced to third reading.
Engrossed committee substitute for House Bill 4024, relating generally to direct cremation or direct burial expenses for indigent persons.
Senator from Ohio County.
Thank you, Mr. President. Requesting unanimous consent, the bill lie over one day, retaining its place on the calendar.
Is there objection? Chair hears none, so ordered.
Engrossed committee substitute for House Bill 4142, providing certain employees of the Division of Corrections, Division of Juvenile Services, and West Virginia Regional Jail and Correctional Facility Authority a salary adjustment.
Senator from Ohio County.
Thank you, Mr. President. Requesting unanimous consent, the bill lie over one day, retaining its place on the calendar.
Is there objection? Chair hears none, so ordered.
Engrossed committee substitute for House Bill 4169, requiring certain establishments and facilities to post human trafficking assistant notices.
Are there amendments? Senator from Ohio County.
Thank you, Mr. President. Requesting unanimous consent, the bill lie over one day, retaining its place on the calendar.
Is there objection? Chair hears none, so ordered.
Engrossed House Bill 4385, making a supplementary appropriation to the Department of Health and Human Resources, Division of Human Services.
Senator from Ohio County.
Thank you, Mr. President. Requesting unanimous consent, the bill lie over one day, retaining its place on the calendar.
Is there objection? Chair hears none, so ordered. Further bills on second reading?
No, sir.
Bills on first reading. Senator from Ohio County.
Thank you, Mr. President. Requesting unanimous consent that all bills on first reading be considered as having been read and advanced to second reading.
Is there objection? Chair hears none, so ordered. Introduction of guests. Introduction of guests. Remarks by members of the Senate. Remarks by members of the Senate. Miscellaneous business. The senator from, recognize the senator from Wetzel County under remarks.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to take a moment here to realize what happened last night in judiciary in the passage of Senate Bill 360 out of the judiciary into the floor. Thank you, Mr. President, and all that you've led. You've given the leadership in this bill. It means a lot to the people of West Virginia. As my friend from Harrison says all the time, this is going to take that money and put it in the hands of the people who are going to live and work and enjoy the great state of West Virginia. And I just want to take this opportunity to say that was a major milestone, and I hope that when that bill comes to the floor, there's nothing but green lights on that board. Thank you, Mr. President.
Remarks by members of the Senate. The senator from Preston County.
Thank you, Mr. President. I really didn't plan on standing up today, but I would like to make a little comment, and we have those in the gallery, they'll know what I'm talking about, I'm sure. The senator from Tucker and I just came back from the House of Delegates. There was a memorial resolution over there for the late Delegate Tony Lewis. He was a personal friend of mine, his family, and I just want to say thank you to all the public employees who were present, that during that presentation they were quiet. It really meant a lot. Thank you.
Further remarks? Miscellaneous business. The senator from Ohio County.
Thank you, Mr. President. Request unanimous consent. The remarks by the senator from Wetzel and the senator from Preston be printed in the appendix of the journal.
Is there objection? Chair hears none, so ordered. Senator from Ohio County.
Thank you, Mr. President. Subject to announcements. Subject to announcements, I move the Senate stand in recess until 5 p.m.
Are there announcements? Senator from Brooke County.
Thank you, Mr. President. I've got this afternoon's meeting announcements. Your Committee on Finance will be meeting immediately following the floor session, and that will be in room 451M. Your Committee on Government Organization will be meeting immediately following Finance, and that meeting will be in 208 West. Immediately following the GovOrg meeting, we will be having the Judiciary Committee meeting, which will also be in 208 West. That meeting will be continued, if need be, after the floor session. And also, I'd like to announce that Judiciary Committee will be meeting on Sunday at 5 p.m. in 208 West. Thank you.
The senator from Cabell County recognized for announcements.
Thank you. You'll remember this time last week I made an announcement that stirred up a lot of. Today I'm announcing that any teacher who graduated from Concord University will be fed a free lunch in 330 West at 1 o'clock.
Further announcements. Further announcements. The senator from Wood County.
Thank you, Mr. President. Your Committee on Banking and Insurance will be meeting on Monday at 2 p.m. in room 451A.
Further announcements. Further announcements. Not question before the Senate is, shall the Senate stand in recess until 5 p.m. today? All those in favor will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. I declare the Senate in recess until 5 p.m. today.
All those not having privileges to the floor will please vacate the chamber. Members and guests will please rise as we are led in prayer this morning by Dr. John Vance. He is the husband of Marlene Vance, the per diem staff of the Finance Committee, and is the guest of Delegate Nelson. Dr. Vance.
Let us pray. O God, source of all truth, beauty, and goodness, we give you thanks for another day and for the opportunity to serve the people of this great state. We ask your blessing upon this assembly and upon all who call upon your name. We beseech thee to guide and bless this House and these delegates, that the laws that they pass may be wise and pleasing to thee. May your grace incline each delegate to kindness and goodwill toward each other. May your mercy kindle in them the desire to act justly, love mercy, and to walk humbly before you. Grant your servants peace and strength as they endeavor to meet the challenges of this day. To the glory of thy name we pray. Through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen.
Amen. Members and guests will please remain standing as we're led in the Pledge of Allegiance by the gentleman from 35th, Delegate Nelson.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Speaker. If the members and our guests would join me in honoring our flag. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Reading of the Journal.
Journal of the House of Delegates, Charleston, Thursday, February 22nd, 2018.
Chair recognizes the gentleman from 35th, Delegate Capita.
Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent that the further reading of the Journal be dispensed with and that it be approved as having been read.
Gentleman from 35th asks unanimous consent that the further reading of the Journal be dispensed with and that it be approved as having been read. Is there objection? Chair hears none. Journal is approved as having been read.
Mr. Speaker.
Gentleman from the 58th.
Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent to briefly address the House to update the members on the Rules Committee.
Gentleman from the 58th asks unanimous consent to address the House. Is there objection? Chair hears none. Gentleman from the 58th.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen, the Rules Committee met just before the session, moved out some resolutions, and made 3 calendar changes. On second reading, we moved committee substitute for House Bill 4158 over to House, committee substitute for House Bill 4238 over to the House calendar, and committee substitute for 4623 over to the House calendar. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Introduction of guests. The lady from the 49th, Doggett Summers.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. With me today, I have a page named Sarah Kinney from Bridgeport High School, and her parents, Chris and Diane, are in the West Gallery. If they would all stand and we could make them welcome.
John from the 28th, Doggett Pack.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On behalf of Delegate Cooper and myself, I am honored this morning to introduce to you and the members of the House our Honorary Secretary of State for the day. The Honorary Secretary of State program recognizes high school students from across the state who have been leaders in voter registration among their classmates. Summers County High School student Kenyon Brogan is here today in the center gallery. He is escorted by his mom, Kelly. If the House would please make them feel welcome.
Lady from 32nd, Doggett Kessinger.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have a guest with me on the floor today, Allie Shaw. If you want to stand up. Her dad works for our state auditor, and she's out of school today, so she's going to join me and learn about the process. If the House would make her welcome.
The John from the 51st, Doggett Stadler.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I understand today we have some guests with us, and I'm proud to thank them for coming down from Montague County. So will you please rise and everyone make them welcome.
Lady from the 57th, Doggett Rowan.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On behalf of all the delegates from Mineral County, it is indeed a pleasure to have two outstanding pages today from Frankfort Middle School. We have with us Ethan Clark and Tiffany Seitz. They are here with family members, Deanna Seitz, Eric, Tanya, and Elizabeth Clark. And also, as a retired teacher, it is indeed an honor to have with us today some outstanding teachers from Mineral County. From Fountain Primary, we have Brandy Kreitz, Dana Ferguson, Gina Fox, and Kelly Malzee. From Kaiser Primary, we have Sam Cunningham. And from Fort Ashby Primary, we have Tanya Clark. Would the House please give them a wide and wonderful West Virginia welcome.
John from 21st, Doggett Dean.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think everyone in here knows that I'm an educator, but that's not just it. Our whole family is, and we have a small portion of them here with us today. If you would, please stand. My Aunt Darlene Richards, my cousin Cassidy Klein, cousin Catherine Carter, Alex Hunt, my cousin, Linda Reber, and these two ladies are cousins who actually work for me, Rebecca Endicott and Naomi Klein. Guys, if you would, please make them feel welcome.
John from 46, Doggett Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In the North Gallery, we have several Lewis County teachers, and we have some Upshur County folks, I believe, in the North and the South Gallery. If they would all stand, and the House please make them feel welcome.
John from the 6th, Doggett Romine.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Proud to have with me today some fine educators and service personnel from the Sunshine County of Doddridge. We have Superintendent Adam Cheeseman. I believe Adam's maybe the youngest superintendent in the state, so I think things look pretty bright for Doddridge. And also Chris Bunnell. I'd have to make a comment here that she's from Riff, Ohio, and she was the next door neighbor growing up of our Sergeant of Arms, Marshall Clay. And so if you want to know anything about Marshall, you probably could ask Kim, or better yet, ask her sister, Kim. But anyway, I'd ask at the House, make them welcome.
John for the 45th, Doggett Hamilton.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's indeed my honor today to, on behalf of the delegates from the 55th, 54th, 44th, 43rd, 41st, and me, I'd like to introduce our teachers, our school service personnel, and public employees who came down here today to support their brothers and sisters. They're from Pendleton, Grant, Webster, Randolph, Pocahontas, Nicholas, and Upshur. If they'd please stand if they're here in the gallery, and the House, please make them welcome.
John from the 10th, Delegate Chris.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to introduce a couple friends of mine from Parkersburg, the Kimballs. Would you please stand? And any other their fellow employees from the Wood County Board of Education, would you please stand and give them a round of applause?
Delegate from the 21st, Delegate D.
Apologize, Mr. Speaker, I wasn't quite done yet. I also like to welcome all the group here from Mingo County today, the teachers, service personnel, and other public employees. If you guys would please stand, we'll make them feel welcome.
Lady from the 18th, Delegate Simonia.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I am very pleased to have two special pages today. In my 16 years here in the legislature, my two grandsons never wanted to page. They were a little bit shy. But we have Isaiah here and Braden. They're students at Martha Elementary. And I also have my daughter-in-law in the rear gallery. She's a teacher's aide with Cabell County Schools. And before we give them a round of applause for being recognized, I'd also like to have the pages from Martha Elementary stand to be recognized. We have Alex White, Colson Christus, Ava Collins, Maddie Osborne, Keely Reynolds, Chance Richardson, Winnie Bird, Molly Black, Aiden May, Landon Nida, Brianna Ward, Ellie McConnell, Edie Gue, and Jacob Johnson. And if their parents would also stand that are in the gallery, and please give them a warm welcome. Thank you.
John from 28th, Delegate Cooper.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On behalf of Delegate Pack and myself, visiting us today from Monroe County is Natalie Broyles, if she would stand up, and her mom, Lori Broyles. Her mom works for James Monroe High School up there. Please make them welcome. Thank you.
Lori used to work. John from 7th, Delegate Hartsburg.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Up in the West Gallery, I know we have one teacher from Ritchie County, and I'm not sure if there's more here today or not, but if they'd please rise, would the House please make them welcome? Thank you.
John from 25th, Delegate Painter.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On behalf of myself, Delegate Dean, Delegates Adkins, Phillips, and Rodriguez, I'd like to introduce all the teachers and service personnel that are here from Wyoming County. Let's give them all a big house welcome.
John from 22nd, Delegate Maynard.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On behalf of the 22nd District, 24th, and 23rd, we have with us today in the North Gallery some educators from Logan County. Would you please stand, and will the House please make them feel welcome? Thank you, guys.
John from 39th, Delegate Walters.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today in the gallery, on behalf of all the Kanawha County delegation, we have some wonderful teachers, school service personnel, and state workers here. I wish they would all stand, and the House please make them welcome.
Jonathan Knight, Douglas Holland.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In the North Gallery, we have a former Work County School Superintendent and current Work County Board member, Dan Metz. And from what I understand, he chauffeured some Work County teachers down with him. If Dan can stand and be recognized, and the House make him welcome.
Jonathan 19th, Douglas Hicks.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On behalf of Robbie Thompson and myself, I'd like to announce that we have several students from the Cerrito Canova Elementary School with us today, and they are escorted today by Deidre Farley, the principal, Leslie Shoemaker, a teacher at the school, and Christopher Perry and his wife. And I'd also like to take a moment and ask that we give all the service personnel and the other teachers from Wayne County a hearty welcome. Thank you.
Jonathan 19th, Douglas Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On behalf of myself and Delegate Hicks, in the South Gallery, we have school personnel from Crum Pre-K through 8th School. We also have some bus drivers from Genoa and Wayne. And in the West Gallery, we have some school personnel from Fort Gay Pre-K through 8th School. So I apologize if I left anybody out, but please give them a warm round of applause.
Jonathan 43rd, Douglas Eisner.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In the South Gallery today, I have some very good friends of mine. I'd ask them to stand. Chrissy Skidmore and her husband, Brian. Chrissy's a wonderful teacher from Randolph County. I know there's some other fantastic teachers from Randolph County up there as well, so on behalf of Delegate Hartman and myself, I'd ask that the House make them feel welcome.
To the members, we are going to take a moment to interrupt our introductions. We will come back to them, but we do have a memorial resolution, and the family is here with us, so I'm going to recognize the gentleman from the 58th.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I would ask unanimous consent to proceed to the 7th order of business for the purpose of receiving resolutions.
The gentleman from the 58th asks unanimous consent the House to proceed to the 7th order of business for the purpose of receiving resolutions. Is there objection? Chair hears none. Resolutions.
House Resolution 9, memorializing the life of the Honorable Tony Jerome Lewis, dedicated husband, father, grandfather, coal miner, soldier, farmer, businessman, and public servant.
Mr. Speaker, ladies and gentlemen of the House, today we have a memorial resolution honoring the life of the Honorable Tony Lewis. To accept the resolution, we have his family. Escorting our guests into the chamber are Delegates Jennings and Delegate Seipolt, Senator Seipolt, Senator Smith, Delegates Rohrback, and Delegate Folk. Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent that the committee reference be dispensed with, the resolution be taken up for immediate consideration and put upon its adoption.
The gentleman 58th asks unanimous consent that the committee reference be dispensed with, the resolution be taken up for immediate consideration, put upon its adoption. Is there objection? Chair hears none. If all members and guests will please rise, and the clerk will please read the resolution.
Whereas Tony Lewis was born on December 1st, 1957 in Heidelberg, Germany, the son of Albert H. Lewis and the late Roberta Fay Lewis. And whereas Tony was married to the love of his life, Lindia, and they were the parents of Roger Paw, Tucker Paw, and Brittany Heineman, and the grandparents of Avery and Brown Heineman. And whereas Tony was a retired United States Army National Guard veteran with over 26 years service, having served tours in Desert Storm and Enduring Freedom. He worked as an underground coal miner for 18 years, and during his years in the mines, he was a mine foreman and fire boss. He also worked for many years as a cable splicer for the telephone company. In addition, He had his master electrician's license and was the sole owner of several businesses, including T&T Electric and T&L Excavating. And whereas in 2016, Tony sought a seat and was elected to the West Virginia House of Delegates from Preston County. Although his time in the legislature was short, he served with distinction and was well respected by his peers. And whereas Tony was a member of the Aurora Volunteer Fire Department and Ambulance EMT, he was also a member of the Order of Eastern Star 129, Preston County Shrine Club, Osiris Shrine Club, Grafton, Algon Shrine, Cumberland, Maryland, Scottish Rite of Preston County, Freemason, Preston County Farm Bureau, VFW Post 578, American Legion Post 71, Elks Lodge 2481, Freemasonry of Wheeling and Ralsburg Lodge 165. And whereas Tony was a member of the Brookside Brethren Church, Eglin, and he loved spending time with his family on Maplehurst Farm. And whereas, sadly, the Honorable Tony Jerome Lewis passed away on Sunday, September 24th, 2017, at home with his family by his side. Therefore, be it resolved by the House of Delegates that the House of Delegates hereby memorializes the life of the Honorable Tony Jerome Lewis, dedicated husband, father, grandfather, coal miner, soldier, farmer, businessman, and public servant. And be it further resolved that the House of Delegates hereby extends its sincere sympathy at the passing of the Honorable Tony J. Lewis, and be it further resolved that the Clerk of the House of Delegates forward a copy of this resolution to the family of the Honorable Tony L. J. Lewis.
Question before the House is the adoption of the resolution. Roll call has been demanded. Is demand sustained? Demand is sustained. Question before the House is the adoption of the resolution. Those in favor of adoption will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Those members escorting our guests will be recorded as voting in the affirmative. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result. On this question, 93 ayes, 0 nays, 7 members absent not voting. Majority of members present having voted the affirmative, I declare the resolution adopted. Clerk, members and guests, please be at ease a moment while I greet our guests and present the resolution. Further introductions. The gentleman from 47th, Doggett Wagner.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have a few introductions here this morning. So with us in the rear gallery, former students of mine. They were here last evening and they came back again this morning. If they would please stand, they're in the gallery behind me. Christy Weiss, Aaron Fincham, Stephanie Moss, who is enjoying her birthday here with us today, and Alyssa Carpenter. If those girls would stand and if the house would make them feel welcome, please. Also with us today from Barber County, former teacher of mine, former neighbor, and also former delegate from the 47th and also chair of the Education Committee, Mary Poling. Mary, would you please stand and the House please? And I believe her son was going to try to make it in the gallery, Eddie Poling. He's a teacher in Barber County. And if Eddie and all the other, if there's any other Barber County teachers, public employees here today from Barber County, if you would all please stand, and if the House would make them feel welcome. Thank you very much.
John from the 8th, Doggett Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to introduce a page I have on the floor today, Rachel Nichols. She's a senior at Williamstown High School, and I believe her mother, Elaine, is in the gallery. If they would rise in the House, make them welcome, I would very much appreciate it. Thank you.
John from 26, Doggett Evans.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to introduce some teachers from McDowell County that are in the rear gallery. If you'd stand and be recognized. Other service employees from McDowell County, just the two up there. We've got some more on the other side. Okay, I can't see them, but if the House would make them feel welcome. Also, Mr. Speaker, just a good friend of mine is also a teacher. Bill McLeod is up here. I'd like to have Bill stand up. He's from Lincoln County.
John from 34th, Doggett Boggs.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm very happy to have a number of teachers, service personnel, and state workers and their guests from Braxton County today. And if they made it into the gallery, if they would stand when I call their name, Laurie Spencer, Tashana Chapman, Cindy Schumann, Marcy Skeens, Donna Lambert, Annie Galinsky, Laura Allen, Todd Spencer, Patricia Nichols, John and Lindsay Kimball, and John is our friend Dan Kimball's son, and his sister, Shaylin Dabbs. If they would stand and the members would please make them welcome. And also, Mr. Speaker, I have a good friend here today from Lewis County, Bob Stoltz. He's also a candidate for the House in the 46th District. If Bob would stand and the members please make Bob welcome.
Lady from 51st, Doggett Fletcher.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On behalf of all of the delegates from Montague County, I'm very excited to welcome a page who is here today. And of course, I can't see him now. His name is Koa Clark. And there he is. And I also want to welcome his dad, who is in the rear gallery. Would he please stand, who has transported Koa down here on this very exciting day. Would everyone make Koa and his dad, David, welcome.
John from 17th, Doggett Lovejoy.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have a couple introductions today. In the West Gallery, we have Melissa Foster Bird. She's one of the finest attorneys in our state. It's great to have her. I've got Braden Cotton. He's a 6th grader at Barbersville Middle School. He's here today for a civics lesson. If Braden would stand up. And finally, on behalf of all the Cabell delegates, all of our Cabell teachers, school service personnel, public employees and their families, if you would please stand. House, make them feel welcome.
John from 22nd, Douglas Eldridge.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On behalf of the Southern delegation, I have people here from Lincoln, Logan, Boone, and Putnam. If you all would please stand, we'll give you a good warm welcome as well.
John from 23rd, Douglas Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have two introductions to make. First, we have a page with us from Scott High School. We have Diana Birchfield, who's also one of my soccer players and a pretty good one at that, coming in as an all-conference player. And she is escorted by her parents who are in the West Gallery. If the House would please make them feel welcome, if they would stand and be recognized. And next, Mr. Speaker, on behalf of the delegation for the 22nd and the 24th, along with me, we have some educators and school service personnel, some folks with Boone County Schools that are in the various galleries, if they would stand to be recognized, as well as want to recognize one who is not able to be here to be recognized in person. But we have a gentleman, an educator, Mr. Turley, who has two separate teams from Madison Middle School who are now competing in the History Bowl at the Cultural Center. So there are things going on. Your educators are still at work. If our Boone County school personnel would please stand and the House make them feel welcome.
John from 42nd, Doug Campbell.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On behalf of Delegate Ambler and myself, we have some of our colleagues from Greenbrier County Schools here. I saw them just in the gallery a minute ago. If you'd stand up, I saw Beth Modrickowski and Selena Butler. Anyone else from Greenbrier County Schools? Stand, please. Now they've walked out.
I think they're back there. I think they're back there.
Well, give them a hand anyway.
Back there.
They were there just 2 minutes ago, I promise.
They're back there.
They're up there? Okay, I'll take your word on it. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I've got one more introduction. Sitting at the top row, if my colleagues here on the House floor from Raleigh County will excuse me for doing this, I've got a great friend from Raleigh County, longtime teacher and coach in Raleigh County, Mark Montgomery. Mark, please stand. Everybody give him a house welcome. Thank you.
John from 37th, Doug Pushkin.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I believe I see some teachers and service personnel from Stonewall Jackson Middle School here in Kanawha County on Charleston's west side. Please stand up, and will the body please make them feel welcome?
Lady from 16th, Doug Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm pleased to announce that, sponsored by the West Virginia Academy of Family Physicians and celebrating the 29th anniversary of the Doc for a Day program, we have two family doctors today. We have Nicholas Robacek from Huntington and Brian McCullough from Charleston. If you all would please make them welcome. Thank you.
John from the 48th, Doug O'Malley.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have a couple of introductions. Let me start with family. In the West Gallery is my wife, Susan, and she has brought my niece and nephew with her, Hunter and Maddie. If they would stand and make the house will make you feel welcome. And also in the West Gallery, we have some Harrison County teachers, and if there are any other Harrison County teachers or service personnel in the house, please stand and allow the house to make you feel welcome.
John 50th, Doug Caputo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. First, I hope you'll give me a little leeway here. I'd like to take a moment to thank all those folks out in the hallways and their leaders, because they paid their respects to Brother Lewis as well, and they quieted down that crowd so we could have a memorial resolution for their family, and I think we owe them a round of applause for doing that. And secondly, Mr. Speaker, on behalf of Delegate Longstreth and Ward and myself, we have a crew of teachers and service personnel here from Marion County. I don't know if they made it in the building or not, but let's give them a warm round of applause because they are here somewhere, believe me. And Mr. Speaker, one more that's going to cause me a lot of grief. My wife couldn't get in the gallery, so she's sitting in my office watching this live, so I want to welcome her. And I want you to know, you only got to put up with me 2 months a year. She's been putting up with me for 38 years. Would you please give her a round of applause?
Absolutely. We might have to give her 2 rounds of applause. Gentleman from 61st, Dr. Barrett.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Joining us today are several teachers from Berkeley County. If they're in the gallery, would please stand, let the House make them welcome.
Gentleman from 44th, Dr. Lynch.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have a couple of very special friends here today, teachers, but one of them has Webster County roots. She lives in Summersville now. Her name is Vanessa Garrett. She's a special education teacher at Summersville Middle School, and her children are like my grandchildren. Would the House please give her a warm welcome? Also, Mr. Speaker, with Vanessa is Leah Ashby. She's a physical education teacher at Birch River Elementary. Please give her a warm welcome. Thank you.
John from the 4th, Dr. Farrow.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Delegate Canistero and I from Marshall County would like to welcome teachers Suzanne Varner today, aide Michelle Myers, and LPN Holly O'Neill, and all of the other members of the Marshall County contingent who are down here spreading their democracy in action. Please stand and let the House make them welcome.
John from 13th, Dr. Brewer.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's been brought to my attention that we have some public employees, educators from Polk Elementary in the South Gallery. If you'd please stand. The House make them welcome.
The third one in.
And also, there's a lot of teachers here today. I don't know if there's anybody here from Jackson or Mason County or other Putnam counties. Please stand up and the House make them welcome.
John from the 5th, Dr. Pethel.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I'm proud to announce that I have once again a group of employees, teachers, and service personnel here from Wetzel County, and they're here working hard on behalf of not only teachers and school service personnel, but all public employees. I believe that at least a couple of them got in the gallery today, Kim Starkey and Beverly Barr. If they would please stand and the House make them welcome. Thank you.
John from 32nd, Dr. Love.
Mr. Speaker, thank you. On behalf of my colleagues from the 32nd, Delegate Fast, Delegate Kessinger, and the delegate from Clay, Delegate Hanshew, we have 2 gentlemen from Clay High School in the South Gallery, 2 good friends and coaches at Clay High School, Mr. Trey Forwell. Would you stand, Trey? And Barry Payton. Let's give them a big House of Delegates welcome. Gentlemen.
Lady from 51st, Dr. Fletcher.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I just noticed that some of the Mon County teachers that were here today, I know there are a lot of them, made it into the gallery. Debbie Gump and Christina Rollins, I wrote it on my hand. Would you please stand, and anyone else from Monongalia County that made it in? Thank you for coming.
John for 29th, Tagamoy.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I am going to go out on a limb and say that I've got some teachers and service personnel here from Raleigh County. I know there are several here today. I know some went to the Senate, but I think some of them may have made their way to our gallery here. And my friend Mark Montgomery has already been recognized, but he can stand up again. Will anyone from Raleigh County here stand up and let's make you welcome?
The members, I met with some teachers and service personnel from Elk Elementary. I don't know if any of them, I don't see them in the gallery, but I may have missed it. If anyone from the Elk Elementary School was there, if they would stand and the House make them welcome. Further introductions. John from 13th, Doug Brewer.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Request unanimous consent to briefly address the House.
John from 13th, ask unanimous consent to address the House. Is there objection? Chair hears none. John from 13th.
Thank you. Just information to the members in the House and the folks in the gallery here with us today that the National Weather Service has issued severe flooding for counties along the Ohio River. And I was in contact with the mayor of Ravenswood this morning, Josh Miller, who's requested 20,000 sandbags from the state if he can get them. They're having tons and tons of sand delivered. So just so you'll know, for your travel plans going home over the weekend, if you happen to be in one of those Ohio River counties, there is extreme flooding that's been forecast. If you're not heading that way, I would ask you to keep those folks in your thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you. Reports of standing committees.
Your Committee on Finance has originated House Bill 4626 relating to West Virginia Innovative Mine Safety Technology Tax Credit Act, reported with recommendation that it do pass.
Report be received. Your
Committee on Finance has had under consideration House Bill 2008 relating to the Dealer Recovery Program and House Bill 4558 establishing the Entrepreneurship and Innovation Investment Fund in the West Virginia Development Office. Reports back committee substitutes, therefore, with the recommendation that the committee substitutes each do pass.
Report be received.
Your Committee on Judiciary has had under consideration House Bill 4217, permitting an attending physician to obtain a patient's autopsy report, House Bill 4524, establishing guidelines for the substitution of certain biological pharmaceuticals, and House Bill 4571, relating to the final day of filing announcements of candidates for a political office. Reports back committee substitutes, therefore, with the recommendation that the committee substitutes each do pass.
Report be received.
Your Committee on Judiciary has had under consideration House Bill 4490 relating to oil and gas permits not to be on flat well royalty leases. Reports back committee substitute, therefore, with the recommendation that the committee substitute do pass.
Report be received.
Your Committee on Judiciary has had under consideration House Bill 4529 relating to oath by municipal official certifying list of delinquent business and occupation taxes. Reports the same back with the recommendation that it do pass.
Report be received.
Your Committee on Judiciary has had under consideration House Bill 4447 providing for a uniform and efficient system of broadband conduit installation. Reports back to committee substitute, therefore, with the recommendation that the committee substitute do pass.
Report be received.
Your Committee on Judiciary has had under consideration House Bill 4455 relating to the animal abuse and House Bill 4494 authorizing certain motor vehicle manufacturers to operate as new car dealers. Reports back committee substitutes, therefore, with the recommendation that the committee substitutes each do pass.
Report be received.
Your Committee on Judiciary has had under consideration House Bill 4336, updating the schedule of controlled substances. Reports back committee substitutes, therefore, with recommendation that the committee substitute do pass.
Report be received.
Your Committee on Rules has had under consideration House Concurrent Resolution 2, United States Marine Corps Private First Class James Ralph Heater Memorial Bridge, House Concurrent Resolution 4, United States Army Spec 4 Gary Wayne Morgan Memorial Bridge. House Concurrent Resolution 9, United States Air Force Major Neil L. Farrell Memorial Bridge. House Concurrent Resolution 25, United States Army Specialist David A. Hess Memorial Bridge. House Concurrent Resolution 35, United States Marine Corps Lance Corporal George W. Henry. House Concurrent Resolution 61, United States Army Private First Class Cornelius Wiley Memorial Bridge. House Concurrent Resolution 65, United States Army Corporal George Browning Memorial Bridge. And House Concurrent Resolution 68, United States Army Sergeant Douglas Thompson Memorial Road. Reports the same back with the recommendation that each be adopted.
Report be received.
Your Committee on Judiciary has had under consideration House Bill 4345 relating to limitations on permits for growers, processors, and dispensaries of medical cannabis. Reports back to committee substitute, therefore, with the recommendation that the committee substitute do pass and that the second reference to the Committee on Finance be dispensed with.
Report be received. Gentleman from the 58th. Gentleman from the 58th.
Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent to dispense with the second reference.
Gentleman 58, ask consent that the second reference to the Committee on Finance be dispensed with. Is there objection? Chair hears none. Second reference is dispensed with. Further reports to standing committees.
Originating in the Committee on Judiciary is House Bill 4627 relating to providing a limitation on the eminent domain authority of a municipal park board by requiring the approval of the governing body of that municipality in instances where it is sought to be exercised reported with recommendation that it do pass.
Master will be received.
Your Committee on Judiciary has had under consideration House Bill 4392 relating to Medicaid subrogation liens of the Department of Health and Human Resources. House Bill 4603 providing immunity from civil liability to facilities and employees providing crisis stabilization, each reported back with the committee substitutes with recommendation that the committee substitutes each do pass.
Report be received.
Your Committee on Finance has had under consideration House Bill 4153 imposing a health care related provider tax on certain health care organizations. Reports the same back with recommendation that it do pass.
Report be received. Gentleman from 58th.
Mr. Speaker, a report from the Committee on Judiciary received last evening did not include a recommendation that House Bill 4036 be referred to the Committee on Finance as previously second reference when the bill was introduced. Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent to return to further consideration of ComSub for House Bill 4036.
Gentleman 58, ask unanimous consent the House turn to further consideration of ComSub for House Bill 4036. Is there objection? Chair hears none. Gentleman from the 58th.
Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent to waive the second reference to the Committee on Finance.
Gentleman 58, ask unanimous consent that the second reference to the Committee on Finance be waived. Is there objection? Chair hears none. Second reference is waived. Reports to select committees. Messages from the executive.
Mr. Speaker, Mr. Armstead presents a communication from His Excellency the Governor advising that on February 21st, 2018, he approved Senate Bill 267.
Message will be received. Messages from the Senate.
The clerk of the Senate announces the passage by the Senate of Committee Substitute for Senate Bill 412 relating to authority of county litter control officers.
Message will be received and the bill be referred to the Committee on Government Organization and then Judiciary.
The Senate has passed Senate Bill 474 requiring that certain documents filed pursuant to West Virginia Jobs Act, which include records of wages, be considered confidential.
Match will be received and the bill be referred to the Committee on Industry and Labor and then Judiciary.
The Senate has passed Committee Substitute for Senate Bill 522 relating generally to Administrative Procedures Act.
Match will be received and the bill be referred to the Committee on the Judiciary.
The Senate has passed Senate Bill 523 relating to tax treatment of pollution control facilities and wind power projects.
Match will be received and the bill be referred to the Committee on Energy and then Finance.
The Senate has passed Committee Substitute for Senate Bill 543 relating to confidentiality of medical records.
Match will be received and the bill be referred to the Committee on the Judiciary.
The Senate has passed Senate Bill 626 relating generally to coal mining.
Match will be received and the bill be referred to the Committee on Energy and then Judiciary. Resolutions, petitions, motions, bills introduced. Unfinished business.
House concurrent. House Concurrent Resolution 3, United States Army Corporal David Michael Hopkins and U.S. Army Corporal Romney Earl Hugert, Jr. Memorial Bridge.
Read the rest.
House Concurrent Resolution 5, United States Army Private First Class Jesse Franklin Crow Memorial Bridge. Committee Substitute for House Concurrent Resolution 13, United States Army Sergeant Major Bill E. Jeffrey Memorial Road. Committee Substitute for House Concurrent Resolution 30, United States Army Private First Class Victor Allen Macedas Jr. Memorial Bridge. House Concurrent Resolution 33, United States Army Second Lieutenant Clarence Dragoon Memorial Bridge. Committee Substitute for House Concurrent Resolution 41, House Concurrent Resolution 40, relating to a study of a statewide virtual library. House Concurrent Resolution 47, United States Army Specialist for William L. Amos Memorial Bridge. Private George, House Concurrent Resolution 75, Private George Howe Continental Army Memorial Highway. House Concurrent Resolution 78, United States Marine Corps Private First Class Danny Marshall Memorial Bridge.
Question before the House is the adoption of the resolutions. All in favor of adoption will say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. Declare the resolutions adopted. There are further resolutions.
House Concurrent Resolution 64, United States Marine Corps Corporal Herschel Woody Williams Highway.
Question for the House is the adoption of the resolution delayed from 16th. Delegate Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Herschel Woody Williams was born October 2nd, 1923. He is a retired United States Marine Corps warrant officer and a United States Department of Veterans Affairs various service representative who has received the United States military highest decoration for valor, the Medal of Honor, for heroism above and beyond the call of duty during the Battle of Iwo Jima in World War II. He and 3 soldiers are the only living Medal of Honor recipients from that war. In addition, he is the only surviving Marine to have received the Medal of Honor during the Second World War and is the only surviving Medal of Honor recipient from the Pacific Theater of that war. He has continued his service to the United States by having a new mission where he has honored the Gold Star families, relatives, and children by doing of Medal of Honor Foundation, building the Gold Star Family Memorial Monument throughout the United States. I strongly recommend you vote for this. Thank you.
Roll call has been demanded. Is demand sustained? Demand is sustained. All those in favor of the adoption of the resolution will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Gentleman from 30th, Delegate Bates, your vote is not Register. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result. On this question, 92 ayes, 0 nays, 8 members absent, not voting. Majority of members present having voted in the affirmative, I declare the resolution adopted. Will clerk please communicate the acts of the House to the Senate on all the resolutions and request concurrence therein. Bills on third reading.
Committee substitute for House Bill 2843, permitting Class 3 municipalities to be included in the West Virginia Tax Increment Act.
Question before the House is the passage of the bill. Gentleman from 35th, Doggett Nelson, to explain the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Yes, House Bill 2843 amends the provisions in the West Virginia Code relating to tax increment financing. Many times we hear that TIFs. As the bill came down from House Finance, we are now adding Class 3 cities that are allowed to issue TIFs. There are 46 Class 3 cities in the state of West Virginia, and a Class 3 city is one that has a population between 2 and 10,000. One thing about the TIFs, the tax increment financing basically is a financing tool for economic development. And what it does is that new development, the increased revenue from the increased property values help fund the repayment of the financing source. To date, we have issued 40 tax increment financing bonds, 16 of those by municipalities. Mr. Speaker, I urge passage of the bill.
Will other members desiring to speak to the passage of the bill? The gentleman from 34th, Doggett Boggs.
Speaker, gentleman yield.
Gentleman yield. Gentleman yields.
Thank you to my friend, the finance chair. When this bill originally came to the Finance Committee, I believe it included Class 3 and Class 4 communities. Is that correct?
That is correct.
So Class 4s have been amended out, which is 2,000 and less.
That's correct.
Now, do they still have an option, should one, in the event that they would be able to find the money and the expertise to move forward, can they still do that with permission of a county commission, or are they completely out?
No, it's a very good point by the gentleman. Class 4s are still eligible, but in coordination with their counties.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Gentleman from 32nd, Doggett, passed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to express my appreciation to the Finance Committee for passing this bill through. This bill includes a great idea for economic development. It also requires, due to the amendment yesterday, it requires notice to the counties. So there's going to be collaboration between the municipalities and the counties. But this provides a great funding source for municipalities to engage in economic development without having to raise taxes. And it keeps the same tax flow for undeveloped land to the counties until the end of the TIF time period. And so I think this is absolutely ingenious, and I applaud the Finance Committee for pushing this through, and I hope the Senate gets it through, and obviously I encourage a yes vote.
John from 46, Doggett Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. With the Finance Chair yield.
Gentleman yield. Gentleman yields.
The delegate from Braxton County was saying that the Class 4 can still do it, still be permitted to do this with coordination with the counties. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, and can this allow private business also to use this through the city, or is it only for, let's say a parking garage or a park?
No, this is, well, generally private entities would be involved with the coordination of their county or municipal entity in a development project.
So you were saying,
but it's led by the municipality or the government entity.
So you were saying that, let's just use an example one. The property is now valued at $1,000. They still pay that $1,000 to the county, but if they do $500 worth of improvements, then that is no longer taxed with the county. Is that right?
Any incremental value increase above the initial level would go to support the financing instrument.
Oh, okay.
The tax on that.
All right, thank you.
Yes.
Are there other members desiring to speak to the passage of the bill? Gentlemen wish to close? If not, the question before the House is the passage of the bill. Those in favor of passage will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine.
The following have paired in accordance with House Rule 43. Delegate Eisner, yea. Delegate Markham, nay.
Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result. On this question, 85 ayes, 7 nays, 8 members absent not voting. A majority of members present having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill passed. Clerk, please report the title.
Committee substitute for House Bill 2843.
Are there amendments to the title?
Delegate Nelson moves to amend the title.
Question for the House is the adoption of the title amendment. All in favor will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. Declare the title amendment adopted. Clerk, please communicate the action of the House to the Senate and request concurrence therein. Further bills on third reading.
Committee substitute for House Bill 2983, granting priority to roadway construction, reconstruction, and maintenance for roadways prone to recurring floods that hinder ingress and egress.
Question for the House is the passage of the bill. Gentleman from 64th, delegate householder.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The bill would provide a proviso under the general duties of the Commissioner of DOH, requiring the Commissioner in exercising general supervision over the state road program to implement reasonable design techniques intended to minimize damage that may result from the recurring floods within the purpose and need of the state road system. I urge passage.
Are there other members desiring to speak to the passage of the bill? If not, the question for the House is the passage of the bill. Those in favor of passage will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result. This question, 92 ayes, 0 nays, 8 members absent not voting. The majority of members present having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill passed. Clerk, please report the title.
Committee substitute for House Bill 2983.
Are there amendments to the title? If not, the title as read by the clerk will be and remain the title of the bill. Clerk, please communicate the action of the House to the Senate and request concurrence therein. Further bills on third reading.
House Bill 4219, permitting employees of educational services cooperatives to participate in the state teachers retirement system.
Question for the House is the passage of the bill. Gentleman from the 66th, delegate Espinosa, to explain the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This bill amends the member definitions for teaching and non-teaching employees covered under the teachers retirement system and defined contribution system to include employees of an educational services cooperative. House Bill 2711, enacted last session, repeals RESAs effective June 30th of this year, but allows county boards who see value in providing some of their programs and services on a regional basis to form a cooperative to do so. Last year's bill provided for coverage in state retirement and health insurance for ESC employees, but there was some confusion over whether the retirement coverage would be TERS or PERS, the Public Employee Retirement System. Because current RESA employees who may become ESC employees when the transition occurs are currently members of either TERS or the defined contribution systems, the Consolidated Public Retirement Board recommended changing the member definitions to remove the confusion. Mr. Speaker, I urge passage of the bill.
Are there other members desiring to speak to the passage of the bill? If not, the question for the House is the passage of the bill. Those in favor of passage will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result. On this question, 92 ayes, 0 nays, 8 members absent not voting. The majority of members present having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill passed. Clerk, please report the title.
House Bill 4219.
Are there amendments to the title? If not, the title as read by the clerk will be and remain the title of the bill. Clerk, please communicate the action of the House to the Senate and request concurrence therein. Further bills on third reading.
Committee substitute for House Bill 4289 relating to disability pensions of municipal employees.
Question for the House is the passage of the bill. The gentleman from the 39th, Delegate Walters, to explain the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. House Bill 4289 increases from $7,500 to $18,000 the amount a member is eligible for total disability not incurred in the line of duty may earn before there's an offset. Currently in the code, there's an offset of, for every $3 earned, their pension's reduced by $1. And the amount hadn't been increased in many years. It provides for a proportional increase to the $18,200 threshold when minimum wages are increased. So in the future, as minimum wages are increased, this threshold will also increase. It eliminates and replaces a reference to the limits based upon workers' compensation benefit for non-duty related disabilities. I urge passage of the bill.
Are there other members desiring to speak to the passage of the bill? If not, the question before the House is the passage of the bill. Those in favor of passage will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. So every member voted. Lady from the 51st, your votes. If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result. On this question, 92 ayes, 0 nays, 8 members absent not voting. The majority of members present having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill passed. Clerk, please report the title.
Committee substitute for House Bill 4289.
Are there amendments to the title? If not, the title is read by the clerk will be and remain the title of the bill. Clerk, please communicate the action of the House to the Senate. Request concurrence therein. Further bills.
Committee substitute for House Bill 4347 relating to voluntary contributions to the West Virginia State Police Forensic Laboratory Fund.
Request before the House is the passage of the bill. Gentleman from 67th, Delegate Moore, to explain the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Before you right now, we have a bill that would permit individuals to voluntarily contribute to the West Virginia State Police Forensic Fund, an issue I know that we've spoken about quite a bit in terms of the backlog that has existed there, and I know there's been a number of efforts to try to alleviate that. So what this bill would do is that each person applying for the issuance or renewal of a driver's license, when paying their fee, would be able to voluntarily contribute an amount to the State Police Forensic Laboratory Fund. And interesting of note, since we've been trying to tackle this issue, at the beginning of 2017, we had a backlog of just over 4,800 unprocessed cases. And currently, as of the beginning of this year, that number is at 3,452, so a decrease of over 1,000 cases there. So progress is being made, and I think this would go quite a ways to further alleviate the issue, and I would urge passage. Thank you.
Are there other members desiring to speak to the passage of the bill? If not, the question before the House is the passage of the bill. Those in favor of passage will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk, gentleman from the 42nd, Delegate Ambler, gentleman from 42nd, your vote is not registered. If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result. On this question, 92 ayes, 0 nays, 8 members absent not voting. The majority of members present having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill passed. Clerk, please report the title.
Committee substitute for House Bill 4347.
Are there amendments to the title? If not, the title as read by the clerk will be and remain the title of the bill. Clerk, please communicate the action of the House to the Senate and request concurrence therein. Further bills on third reading.
Committee substitute for House Bill 4502, adding the crimes of murder and armed robbery to the list of offenses for which a prosecutor may apply for an order authorizing interception.
Request before the House is the passage of the bill. The gentleman from the 33rd, Delegate Hanshaw, to explain the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. The committee substitute before us does exactly as the short title says. It adds these 2 additional items, as well as 3 more that I'll list in a moment, to the list of offenses for which a prosecutor may apply for a wiretap. Our current statute provides a laundry list of offenses or crimes for which a prosecutor may seek a wiretap order from a circuit judge. If adopted, the bill before us would add murder, armed robbery, felonious sex offenses, treason, and organized crime to the list of offenses for which a wiretap may be sought. Mr. Speaker, I urge passage of this bill.
Are there other members desiring to speak to the passage of the bill? If not, the question before the House is the passage of the bill. Those in favor of passage will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine.
The following have paired in accordance with House Rule 43. Delegate Eisner, yea. Delegate Markham, nay.
Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result. On this question, 92 ayes, 1 nay, 7 members absent not voting. Majority of members present having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill passed. Clerk, please report the title.
Committee substitute for House Bill 4502.
Are there amendments to the title? If not, the title as read by the clerk will be and remain the title of the bill. Clerk, please communicate the action of the House to the Senate and request concurrence therein. Further bills on third reading.
Committee substitute for House Bill 4542, allowing public service districts to accept payment by credit card.
Request before the House is the passage of the bill. The gentleman from the 33rd, Delegate Hanshaw, to explain the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen, public utility regulation in the state of West Virginia is done by our Public Service Commission. And under our statutes, before a public utility may charge a fee of virtually any kind to a customer, that fee has to be approved by the Public Service Commission in the form of a tariff. Those tariffs are filed with the Public Service Commission for approval and then posted with the public utility for inspection by the customer. This bill will authorize a public service district to allow customers to pay by credit card, optionally pay by credit card, and allow the PSD to charge that processing fee on through to the customer. It's an entirely voluntary bill. It doesn't mandate the customers pay with a credit card, but it allows the public service district to make that service available and allows the PSD to recoup that fee without an amendment to its tariff. Mr. Speaker, that's the bill. I urge passage of it.
Are there other members desiring to speak to the passage of the bill? If not, the question before the House is the passage of the bill. Those in favor of passage will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine.
The following have paired in accordance with House Rule 43. Delegate Eisner, yea. Delegate Markham, nay.
Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result. On this question, 92 ayes, 1 nay, 7 members absent not voting. Majority of members present having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill passed. Clerk, please report the title.
Committee substitute for House Bill 4542.
Are there amendments to the title? If not, the title as read by the clerk will be and remain the title of the bill. Clerk, please communicate the action of the House to the Senate and request concurrence therein. Further bills on third reading.
Committee substitute for House Bill 4607, establishing certain criteria for the restricted operation of drones within state parks, forests, and rail trails.
Question before the House is the passage of the bill. The gentleman from the 33rd, Delegate Hanshaw, to explain the bill.
Thank you again, Mr. Speaker. The committee substitute before us for House Bill 4607 starts out by providing a blanket authorization that allows the use of drones in state parks. The background on the bill is one of photo enthusiasts, so we're told that there are a number of folks who are visiting our state parks from out of state who wish to use their drone to photograph our state parks and have in certain circumstances been met with prohibitions imposed by the park unilaterally when they've arrived. So the purpose of this bill is to start with the default presumption that the use of drones is permissible in our state parks with the following exceptions that may be imposed by the park superintendent. The protection and safety and privacy of others in the park, protection of the facilities on the area of the park, protection of the peaceful and quiet atmosphere of the area, and to prevent harassment of wildlife. That has to be done on an individual case-by-case basis depending upon the circumstances that are going on in the park that day. And the park superintendent is required by the terms of the bill to provide interested parties with a map of areas that contain those areas of interest. And lastly, the bill provides that the owner and user of the drone is responsible for any and all liability that arises as a result of that use. That's the bill, Mr. Speaker. I urge its passage.
Are there other members desiring to speak to the passage of the bill? If not, the question before the House is the passage of the bill. Those in favor of passage will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine.
The following have paired in accordance with House Rule 43. Delegate Eisner, yea. Delegate Markham, nay.
Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result. This question, 92 ayes, 1 nay, 7 members absent not voting. Majority of members present having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill passed. Clerk, please report the title.
Committee substitute for House Bill 4607.
Are there amendments to the title? Not title as read by the clerk will be and remain the title of the bill. Clerk, please communicate the action of the House to the Senate and request concurrence therein. Further bills on third reading.
Committee substitute for House Bill 4619 relating to supporting implementation of comprehensive systems for teacher and leader induction and professional growth.
Request for the House is the passage of the bill. Gentleman from 66, Delegate Espinosa, to explain the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The purpose of this bill is to provide a more robust and reliable source of funding to support new teachers and leaders in their first years of employment. This is a critical period when new graduates who are just beginning their careers in teaching are still developing the professional practice skills that will help them become accomplished teachers. It is also a period when the quality of support a new teacher receives during his or her first several years in the classroom can greatly influence the decision to remain in or exit the profession. At a time when we are discussing growing teacher shortages across the state, we can ill afford to lose newly recruited teachers due to the lack of adequate support. The comprehensive systems of support for teacher and leader induction and professional growth referred to in this bill allow school systems a very flexible mechanism for how they will provide the needed support and mentoring for new teachers and principals and for those who are struggling. But these systems are significantly under-resourced at the state level. The current funding for this systems has declined dramatically over the past 6 years due to mid-year line item reductions, and for the latest available fiscal year, allocated $128 per year per teacher with 3 or less years of experience for counties to provide new teacher induction and mentoring support. This bill will recapture 20% of the state aid reductions that occur due to the growth in local share and redirect it back to the counties for teacher and leader induction and professional growth. This will be the first recognition within the school aid formula of the value of quality professional development. Mr. Speaker, I urge passage of the bill.
Are there other members desiring to speak to the passage of the bill? If not, the question for the House is the passage of the bill. Those in favor of passage will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result. On this question, 92 ayes, 0 nays, 8 members absent not voting. Majority of members present having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill passed. Clerk, please report the title.
Committee substitute for House Bill 4619.
Are there amendments to the title? If not, the title as read by the clerk will be and remain the title of the bill. Gentleman from 58.
Mr. Speaker, I move the bill be made effective July 1st, 2018.
Gentleman 58 moves the bill be made effective July 1st, 2018. All in favor of the gentleman's motion will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has each member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result. On this question, 92 ayes, 0 nays, 8 members absent not voting. 2/3 of the members elected having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill effective as of July 1st, 2018. Clerk, please communicate the acts of the House to the Senate and request concurrence therein. Further bills on third reading.
House Bill 4624 relating to West Virginia coordinate systems.
Request for the House is the passage of the bill. Gentleman from the 56, Delegate Howell, to explain the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The purpose of this bill is to update the code regarding coordinate system surveys. The updated language defines related acronyms. The system provides for a plain coordinates values expressed in X coordinates and Y coordinates, and for the conversion rate between meters and United States survey feet. The bill provides requirements for performance of the West Virginia Coordinate System surveys. The bill provides that no WVCS report may be published in public record without certification that the coordinates were established in compliance with the laws, rules, and regulations governing surveying as performed by professional surveyor licensed to practice surveying in West Virginia. The bill further provides that any map, plat, report, description, or geospatial product that establishes or reports geodetic positions referenced to the National Spatial Reference System shall comply with the accuracy and reporting requirements for the WVCS. This will update the state code to match the federal system in place before 2022. I urge passage.
Are there other members desiring to speak to the passage of the bill? If not, the question for the House is the passage of the bill. Those in favor of passage will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine.
The following have paired in accordance with House Rule 43. Delegate Thompson. Yea. Delegate Markham. Nay.
No. Thank you. Has every member voted now that I have? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result. This question, 92 ayes, 1 nay, 7 members absent not voting. Majority of members present having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill passed. Clerk, please report the title.
House Bill 4624.
Are there amendments to the title? If not, the title as read by the clerk will be and remain the title of the bill. Clerk, please communicate the action of the House to the Senate and request concurrence therein. For what purpose, gentleman from the 51st, Doug Statler, seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, I was my chair on roll call vote 203, House Bill 2043, and my vote didn't register. I want to be on recorded as being on the affirmative.
I'm sorry, what was the bill number again?
2043. Just a second, we're checking.
Roll call 203.
It's roll call 203, so.
It was 2843.
2843, I'm sorry. Didn't know it was going to cause such a delay in this commotion.
So the gentleman, you were at your desk and attempted to vote, and it just did not register?
That is correct.
Okay. So the gentleman's vote will be recorded.
Thank you,
How
sir.
did the gentleman vote? In the affirmative? You said
In the
it?
affirmative.
Gentleman's vote will be recorded. Bills on second reading.
Committee substitute for House Bill 2889, allowing military veterans with certain military ratings to qualify for examinations required of probationary police officer.
Are there amendments? Not to bill be engrossed and advanced to third reading.
Committee substitute for House Bill 4214, increasing penalties for unlawfully possessing or digging ginseng.
Are there amendments?
No.
Not to bill be engrossed and advanced to third reading.
Committee substitute for House Bill 4444, clarifying the authority of the State Fire Commission in adopting the State Building Code.
Are there amendments?
No.
Not to bill be engrossed and advanced to third reading.
House Bill 4465, authorizing the Acupuncture Board to issue certificates to perform auricular acudetox therapy.
Are there amendments?
Nope.
Not to bill be engrossed and advanced to third reading.
Committee substitute for House Bill 4481, relating to mandatory inter-board reporting by licensees or registrants of the boards of medicine, osteopathic medicine, nursing.
Are there amendments? Not to bill be engrossed and advanced to third reading.
House Bill 4539, providing an annual annuity adjustment of 1% for eligible deputy sheriff retirements and surviving spouses.
Are there amendments? Not to bill be engrossed and advanced to third reading.
Committee substitute for House Bill 4546, relating to where an application for a marriage license may be made.
Are there amendments?
No.
Not to bill be engrossed and advanced to third reading.
Committee substitute for House Bill 4550, providing the Board of Barbers and Cosmetologists the authority to establish an apprenticeship program for cosmetologists.
Are there amendments? No. Not to bill be engrossed and advanced to third reading. Bills on first reading.
Committee substitute for House Bill 2383, providing for the redistricting office of the Joint Committee on Government and Finance to propose redistricting plans during census years.
Bill be advanced.
Committee substitute for House Bill 2982 relating to allowing Powerball, Mega Millions, and Hot Lotto ticket winners to remain anonymous.
Bill be advanced.
Committee substitute for House Bill 4014 relating to reorganization of the West Virginia Department of Health and Human Resources.
Bill be advanced.
Committee substitute for House Bill 4016 relating to combating waste, fraud, and misuse of public through investigations, accountability, and transparency.
Bill be advanced.
Committee substitute for House Bill 4166, establishing a special revenue fund to be known as the Capital Improvement Fund, Department of Agricultural Facilities.
Bill be advanced.
Committee substitute for House Bill 4187, Business Liability Protection Act.
Bill be advanced.
Committee substitute for House Bill 4218 relating to medical professional liability.
Bill be advanced.
Committee substitute for House Bill 4309 restricting the sale and trade of dextromethorphan.
Bill be advanced.
Committee substitute for House Bill 4394 relating to forest fires.
Bill be advanced.
Committee substitute for House Bill 4453 relating to judicial review of contested cases under the West Virginia Department of Health and Human Resources Board of Review.
Bill be advanced.
House Bill 4486 relating to persons required to obtain a license to engage in the business of currency exchange.
Bill be advanced.
Committee substitute for House Bill 4509 relating to the establishment of substance abuse treatment facilities.
Bill be advanced. For what purpose the gentleman from the 22nd, Delegate Eldridge, seek recognition?
I'd like to ask unanimous consent to address the House for a few minutes.
Gentleman asking unanimous consent to address the House. Is there objection? Chair hears none. Gentleman from the 22nd.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to ask for a moment of silence, but before we do that, Mr. Speaker, I'd like to read something from Delegate White, if that would be all right.
Gentleman may proceed.
As we lay my father to rest today, I want to thank a great friend, Delegate Steve Westfall, for requesting a moment of silence for my father on Monday. He would never have dreamed of that happening. I also want to thank each member that stood in his remembrance from the bottom of my heart. Since my father was a registered Democrat, I only felt this should be read by a great friend and Democrat Jeff Eldridge. I had asked my dad hundreds of times to move from Beckley, West Virginia, to Charleston, West Virginia. He would not, because he always said he had friends in Beckley. My brother and I couldn't figure out who his friends could be, since all of his siblings had passed and he had outlived all of his friends. But about 9 years ago, he had started going to therapy after back surgery at a facility in Beckley. Little did our family realize how important this was to my father and sister, but a strong and vital friendship was built with the owner and staff. Even after he was in wheelchair bound, he kept going to see his friends there and talk railroading. So it's not often that I get to cross the aisle and thank someone for going above and beyond. Our family truly appreciates you, Mick Bates. And your staff at Body Works. My dad loved you guys and would want me to publicly thank you. God bless.
Members and guests may be seated. John for the 50th delegate.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I ask unanimous consent that the very somber and heartfelt remarks by my friend from the 22nd to please be printed in the appendix of the journal.
Without objection, remarks be printed in the appendix of the journal. Leaves of absence. All gentlemen from the 58th.
Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent to return to the third order of business for the purpose of receiving committee reports.
Gentleman 58th asks unanimous consent that the House return to the third order of business for the purpose of receiving committee reports. Is there objection? Chair hears none. Gentleman from the 53rd.
Originating in the Committee on Finance, report supported with the recommendation that it do pass, is House Bill 4628 relating to authorizing the redirection of amounts collected from certain surcharges and assessments on workers' compensation insurance policies for periods prior to January 1, 2019.
Report be received.
Your Committee on Finance has had under consideration House Bill 4357, West Virginia Small Wireless Facilities Development Act, and House Bill 4563 relating to the severance tax on oil and gas produced from low-producing wells. Reports back committee substitutes, therefore, with the recommendation that committee substitutes do pass.
Report be received.
Your Joint Committee on Enrolled Bills has examined, found truly enrolled, and on February 23, 2018, presented to His Excellency the Governor for his action, Committee Substitute for House Bill 2831 relating to the reconstitution of the Driver's Licensing Advisory Board, and Committee Substitute for House Bill 4242 clarifying the jurisdictional amount for removal of a civil action from Magistrate Court to Circuit Court.
Report be received. Leaves of absence. Gentleman from the 58th.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Speaker. For our colleagues, delegates Deem, Ellington, Kelly, Phillips, Summers, and White.
Without objection, leaves will be granted. Remarks by members of the House. The gentleman from the 41st, Doggett Hill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Just very quickly, I received notification from the West Virginia Division of Culture and History yesterday. If I may, I'd like to read the email I received from them. Summersville Middle School wins Region 4 History Bowl Tournament. Summersville Middle School with students Sandra Kreitz, Jacob Keene, Abigail Lucas, Noah Miner, won the West Virginia Division of Culture and History's Region 4 tournament for the 2018 West Virginia History Bowl on Saturday, February 17th at Fayetteville High School in Fayetteville, West Virginia. Webster County Middle School, Team 2, with students Connor Bell, Koala Kleins, Gracie Hines, Dakota McMillian, was the runner-up. So I just wanted to say congratulations to those students, their families, and of course, their teachers. Thank you.
Gentleman from 34th, Doggett Boggs.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to just take a moment. Some of you may remember a few months ago, I took to the floor and expressed some concern over the division of highways and holding up a development over an 1,800 square foot piece of property that kept a Dollar General store from coming to Burnsville, one of our Class 4 municipalities. And I just wanted to just follow up on that. I had a conversation with the Speaker at a time when, throughout this session, we've talked about lots of different things for a lot of different folks. The Development Office has proposed things that cost in the hundreds of millions of dollars. I had some conversations with the Governor's office, who seemed to want to help, with Senator Joe Manchin, who seemed to want to help, and with Secretary Smith, who also wants to help. And I think that's all been resolved, but the problem is getting them back to the table. And just to refresh your memory, this is a community that's situated right on I-79, wonderful location, center of the state. But they don't have a grocery store. They've got 2 convenience stores, and they desperately need something to boost their economy. It's only 8 or 10 jobs, but that's enough to move the needle in a small community. And this could be any of your communities. But I had a conversation with folks here with the State Development Office on a couple different occasions, and here's what I was told, asking if they would be willing to intervene to help try to get them back to the table now that these other things with highways had been resolved. And I was told, well, we really don't like picking winners and losers. Really? Really? We don't like picking winners and losers? That's their job. That's part of their proposal that they made for this inventory and business tax. And I appreciate everything they do, but I think maybe one of the hang-ups that I've had is the fact that I see a lot of things on the scale, but not down where the people live, where people would have to drive 20 or 30 minutes in 3 different directions to get a roll of paper towels. This is not a matter, there's not competition in the community for that. And Mr. Speaker, I know that you have great knowledge and you grew up in the area, and I appreciate your willingness, and I want to publicly call upon you, thank you for listening to me, and I want to call upon you to assist in trying to get our development office to realize that development is more than just Procter & Gamble, Macy's, and huge industries. We passed a bill today dealing with, and nothing personal with those, they're great, I love them. But we've got communities that don't have them and are never going to have them. We've got to be doing something for our small communities. We passed a bill today to help our Class 3 municipalities. It's wonderful. That's wonderful. I'm glad we did. But each and every person in here has got a small community and rural community somewhere, with the exception of maybe the delegate from 37th, that has places that are in need. We're not looking for a handout. We're looking for a hand up. We're looking for some assistance. And when I hear things like that we don't want to pick winners and losers, tell people, I can't tell people in Burnsville that, or Gasaway, or Sutton, or Glenville, or Sand Fork, or Flatwoods, or any of your communities, and I don't imagine you would want to go home and tell them that either. I'll just tell them how it is. That's the answer that I got. And I think it was way out of line. We have great small business development across the state, but sometimes we need a little bit of help from the higher levels. And that's all the people in Burnsville are asking for. Because make no mistake, in a small rural community, we don't have places that are going to get 100, 200, 300 jobs, but 8 or 10 or 12 jobs is going to move the needle on our unemployment. And it's going to make a difference in the quality of life, where people have got an ability to go get some staple goods, things that they need without having to drive 30, 40, 50 minutes in both directions. So, Mr. Speaker, I appreciate your help. I appreciate all of you in here, because I know we're all in the same boat together. So, again, this is not a Democrat issue. This is not a Republican issue. This is a West Virginia issue. So let's put some pressure on the folks that are supposed to be helping develop our communities, large and small, and maybe we can see some good things happen all across West Virginia. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
John from the 17th, Rohrbach.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Very briefly, I wanted to thank everyone on behalf of Tony Lewis's wife and family. She wanted me to tell everyone how much she and their family appreciated what this house and the gallery did today to honor Tony. So with that, I'll leave it at that, but thank you, Mr. Speaker.
John from the 1st, Douglas Tesla.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Just a little bit before we came to the chamber, I got a call from Delegate Kelly, who is prepping his house for what is going to be a rather bad flood situation, and it starts in Parkersburg, and I've been watching this, and it looks like it's going to be very bad for the middle to lower Ohio Valley. I'm hoping that the rain holds off up in Weirton long enough so the Ohio doesn't do anything really damaging up there. but it will be important for all of us to keep in mind the people along the river. It's going to be up, and it's going to be probably pretty bad. So I'd like for you all to consider that. Thank you.
John 13th, Dr. Brewer.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Over the last couple of days, we have seen an overwhelming request for help from our public employees. Now, up until now, my experience has always been with private negotiations when it comes to labor issues, and I've always been in their position, these folks. I've always been on labor side. And what labor is required to do is sit down with management, and both sides are required to negotiate in good faith. That means everybody's honest and everybody works towards what's best for the industry. And we have always agreed that a race to the bottom for the sake of saving the dollar is not what's best for our industry, because we can't maintain quality in our industry. Simply can't do it. We maintain a healthy relationship because we routinely meet. Labor and management meets on a monthly basis, if not more frequent, to figure out what the issues are between the two sides and hopefully have them ironed out so that we don't reach a boiling point. Well, folks, I think we've reached a boiling point. In this case, we are management, and these folks are labor, and we need to do something about it. And they're here to meet. I can hear them. They want to meet with management. So all I'm suggesting is that we negotiate in good faith with labor. As management, we negotiate in good faith with them, and we find some sort of a dedicated funding source for their insurance, and we don't risk that race to the bottom so that we can maintain our quality labor force. Thank you.
John 3rd, Dr. Flaherty.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The past few weeks, we've seen some real leadership. We've seen leadership in the gallery, on the boulevard, out in the halls. And, Mr. Speaker, surprisingly to you, I'm going to give you some credit, because I believe, although I disagree with a lot of policies that come out of this House, that you've shown leadership because you haven't played hide-and-go-seek with constituents like your counterpart over in the Senate. So I want to thank you for that. And that leads me to our governor. Because, you know, in times like this, when our state's history is literally being written as I stand here today, our governor has been absent, nowhere to be found. As thousands of West Virginians come to Charleston, walk our hallways, wanting their voices heard, our governor, who has never shied away from a camera or a prop, seems to be missing in action. I just don't know where he's at. You know, when it was time to help fix the budget, he turned to you and said, we need money from you. When it was time for a road bond, he turned to you and said, we need money from you. But when it's time to answer the call for those who answered the call before, he says there's no money. He said we can't even think and talk about a severance tax increase. I think it's time that out-of-state interests start paying to help West Virginians instead of always looking at West Virginians. I think it's time we treat our people as good as we treat our roads. Roads are meaningless if nobody's driving on them. And, you know, what has happened in the past 48, 72 hours, really, I keep going back and forth between pride and anger and sadness. Our Attorney General comes out and says, there's a lot of illegal activity going on. He's going to step up and do whatever it takes. You're all criminals. And then less than 24 hours later, when he realized it wasn't very popular what he said how great you were. That's politics. So through this whole process, I think we've forgotten what this is really all about. You know, it's not about us down here. It's about who got us here. To me, it's Mrs. Greathouse, Mrs. Clark, Mr. Marple, who taught me history. Sometimes we repeat it, sometimes you make it. I think we've got a lot of that going on right now. Mr. Kuski, who basically said, Sean, if you would just shut up every now and then, you could go places. And, but, you know, and also, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention who really got me here, and that's my mother, who is on a picket line today in Marshall County. She's been in the special ed field for 30 years, and that's why I get up and fight for her and fight for everybody else up north in this whole state. So that's what we need to remember is who got us here. And let's finish with that. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
John from 7th, Doggett Harshbarger.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I just want to rise and give a few thoughts. There's been a lot of discussion about severance tax earlier this session, and I know a lot of people up in the gallery have that on their signs out here as they demonstrate to us as legislators. And you know, I just want to point out a few thoughts here on severance tax before we take a reaction on severance tax. Our state is an energy producing state, which we are blessed. For years, the coal industry has supported the state. And with regulations, that's actually hurt us with the regulations and policies on Capitol Hill. So I just want to throw a few thoughts out there on severance tax and give you guys some numbers. For West Virginia, in 2014, we had $229 million in severance tax. Last year, in 2017, $124 million. We've seen a 46% drop in severance tax. It's a commodity. It is driven by supply, demand, fluctuation in the market, and I struggle personally to base a budget off something that's going to fluctuate almost 50%. We don't know what your future holds. We don't know what the politics on Capitol Hill is going to be in 3 years when there's a new presidential election. They could shut down the fracking industry, as they actually hurt our coal industry. So we can't depend on that revenue as a solid source to budget our balance or our budget. Something else I want to point out is I went up and spoke with my teachers for about 2.5 hours a couple weeks ago, and this question came up about severance tax. And I went through it. After that meeting, a couple days later, I received several emails from those teachers. They said, do not increase severance tax. And I started asking why. A lot of people in my area, I live in a mineral-producing county of natural gas. They have contractual lease agreements that says their royalty check has the right to deduct severance tax. So if we increase severance tax, that's going to be less money in my mineral owners' pockets, which are my teachers, my constituents of Ritchie County and the surrounding counties. So that's just some food for thought. And we look at these other states as we classified a world-class shale play, and you look at Texas and Oklahoma, and you look at their budget. Oklahoma has a budget of, I got it here, $6.7 billion. Their severance tax accounts for about 2% of their total budget. Texas has a budget of $217 billion. Their severance tax account for 2% of their budget. West Virginia has a $4.3 billion budget as of last year. Our severance tax currently at the low market rate is 3% of our budget. So if we go increase our severance tax, that's going to put more emphasis on our budget, a higher percentage on our budget for a budget that is actually smaller than any of the other mineral producing states. So 2% of $217 billion, you have a little bit of noise in there. You could swallow that and deal with it and budget cuts and handle that. In a $4.3 billion budget, when you have 3% or more and you have a fluctuation in that severance tax, it's going to impact our budget significantly. So that's one thing as we go forward on this, we need to be very cautious of how we look at this severance tax. We do have a bright future in our state with the oil and gas and the shale play in the northern central part of the state. With that, we're going to have a lot of industries that want to invest in this state, the chemical industries, the fractionation industries, the downstream products of this natural gas and oil development. So things are going to come, but with that, something I want to get back to is we've also talked about the equipment and inventory tax. There's been a lot of negative publicity out there about that. But over the last 20 years, there's been multiple studies that indicates the equipment and inventory tax is the #1 job inhibitor. Just last week, we had a business leave Raleigh County and go across to Virginia. They don't have a business inventory tax. These are long-term, stable jobs that we need to bring to West Virginia on the manufacturing side. They provide jobs. They provide taxes for our state and local economy. They increase our student enrollment in schools, which my county is struggling with. We have no manufacturing, and we are losing students left and right because there's no jobs in our county. So that's something I want to bring up is this business inventory tax is a deal breaker for the state of West Virginia. We've lost $50 million on the business inventory tax in the last 5 years because businesses are leaving this state. They're going across state lines because none of the bordering states around us has the business and inventory tax. So I just want to leave you with a few thoughts to see how this all plays out with the severance tax. I have no problem with looking at it, but we need to do it in a very methodical method to basically balance our budget and to keep the highs and lows from impacting our budget from year to year so we're not back to making cuts, and also possibility to take care of our public employees down the road. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Jonathan 55th, Dagus-Panago.
Mr. Speaker, I'm frustrated and I'm tired. We're on the 45th day of a 60-day legislative session. And since the very first day of the State of the State address by our governor, where he insulted teachers, school service personnel, state troopers, every public employee in the state by offering a Christmas ham. Go 365, I think, was the straw that broke the camel's back. Among the premium hikes and the ridiculous deductibles that are going up. The anger has been bubbling up across all 55 counties strong. Every public employee in the state of West Virginia are fed up. We haven't done anything meaningful. I have public teachers, school service personnel are one of the few public employees that have the right to organize in this state or have a strong type of union. So they can get collectively together with their voices and try to make an impact. And that's what you guys are down here today. You walked out yesterday, you walked out today, and you're trying to make an impact. No, in my district of East Tardy High School, Wednesday, the high school kids walked out of the high school. They walked around in protest of the high school supporting their educators. They had signs such as, "We love our teachers," invest in public education, and my favorite, "Having to deal with us, they deserve better pay." That certainly could have been said with me when I was going up through school. So, everybody has asked us for help. You've asked us for help, something more than 5%, to fix and fully fund PEIA, not freeze it. We gave you Christmas hams. Then you yelled for help. You started yelling, saying, "We're going to start walking out if you don't listen to us." You took a Christmas ham away, gave you 4% for getting too loud. The pay raise you got, school teachers, you're 48th in the country in pay. After this magnificent pay raise offered by the majority, you are still 48th in pay. Then you yelled. Didn't listen. Now you march. You marched yesterday. You marched today. The place is packed. It's falling on deaf ears again. Deaf ears. You heard the priorities in here. You just heard them right for here. We've got to cut taxes for coal, oil, and gas, manufacturing in the tune of $140 million because that's 3% of the state's general revenue budget. And if we do that, none of you are going to get any type of pay raises in the immediate future. I can assure you, because there's no money. We have attempted to look for a permanent funding stream for PEIA, raise the severance tax, legalize marijuana, bring back the food tax, the soda pop, every tax under the sun. They don't want to touch any of that. So we don't have a permanent solution. There's no consensus how to do it. So we sit here, running around in circles, with 15 days left to go in session, and I'm frustrated that you are not being heard. You were talking, you were yelling, you were marching, you doing everything in your ability to get the 83rd legislature to reprioritize what they think is important in the state of West Virginia. And it's fallen on deaf ears. If we do not react, then I'm going to suggest highly to you that when the 84th legislature comes back in January, it be made up with entirely new members that might actually put their ear out there and listen when you're yelling. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Gentleman 36, Doug Rowe.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We heard some thoughtful comments from our friend from Ritchie County concerning both the gas tax and also the inventory tax. And I think it really points to the problem that we have. And that is that the leadership here and in the Senate refuses to take pay raises and PEIA benefits out of the general revenue budget. As long as it stays in the general revenue budget, the pay raises and the PEIA benefits are always going to be in jeopardy because there's no steady, reliable, dedicated revenue stream to pay for raises this year, next year, and on into the future without such a reliable, special, dedicated revenue stream. Now, it is whether you're talking about PEIA or about pay raises. You know, we're not talking about this year, but that's the way the leadership here has approached this issue, is that we will not dedicate a reliable revenue source to either PEIA or to pay raises. We'll have it stay in the general revenue budget. It'll always be the last dollar out. That's the problem that we've got. That's how we've gotten where we are. And so I think that when we look at possible revenue streams, one of the best ones is natural gas, because that ought to be paid by the ultimate end user. Now, if the leases say that perhaps they'll have to pay some of the tax, I hope that's not the case. But let me point out that we reduced the natural gas tax 2 years ago that produced $62 million. Now, $62 million, if dedicated, if that tax were reinstituted and dedicated just to PEIA, it would fix PEIA. And when I say fix PEIA, I mean that we would not have to increase the premium costs. We do not have to increase the premium costs, and we don't have to reduce benefits. And that amount of money will grow from year to year. We have to have a revenue stream that will grow with the economy. And natural gas, we hear every single day, we're told that it's the dream come true for West Virginia, that this is what we've got. This is what we offer to the world. This is how we'll power the world. Well, I say we ought to be paid a little bit for doing all that for the rest of the country. What better revenue stream than natural gas, this production tax that we had there just 2 years ago? $62 million, and it will grow. How will it grow? Well, we've got the forced pulling bill that's going over to the Senate, but most of all, we've got pipelines that are, as they say, in the pipeline. Natural gas production is going to grow, and West Virginia, its teachers, its public employees, its school service personnel, troopers, all of those folks deserve decent wages and fair benefits. We can fix PEIA just by reinstituting a gas tax we dropped 2 years ago. And you say, what about pay raises? That's more money than PEIA. That's true. But we can approach the same sort of issue with pay raises, because until we take that out of the general revenue budget, where it has to fight for the inventory tax break or other business tax breaks, we're always going to have a problem in finding money sufficient to pay decent wages. And we hear over and over and over, we just don't have the money. We don't have the money. Of course we've got the money. It's a question of whether we prioritize the people who work for us sufficiently to give them a decent wage. We have the money. We just have to spend it that way. And there's an absolute refusal by this leadership to do that. And we've got to do it. Now, we heard yesterday a bunch of history lessons about, oh, gee, whenever the other party had control of the body, we didn't have dedicated, special, dependable revenue streams to pay either for PEIA or for pay raises. Well, we certainly didn't for pay raises. but there were funds that were put away for PEIA. Those funds were spent down, and the reason that those funds were there and were used for PEIA and that fund depleted was because we kept pumping the money into the rainy day fund, knowing that it would be available when it rained. Well, ladies and gentlemen, it's raining on our employees. It's time to spend some money to make sure that we take care of our employees. Now, if we do the tax dedicated to PEIA, that will go so far to helping all of our employees. Incredible benefit to them. It will put money in their pocket. So, ladies and gentlemen, I would ask us to look very deeply into our revenue streams, what we can do in order to make sure that we are valuing our employees, whether they're teachers or troopers or public employees or public school service personnel. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
John from 63rd, Doug Polk.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. PEIA. It was just mentioned a little while ago here that your premiums are going to go up, your copays are going to go up, your out-of-pocket's going to go up. False. The freeze that the PEIA board voted on last week and approved means the PEIA plan will stay as it is right now until July 2019. The solutions that people have been talking about here, which are revenue streams for PEIA, is treating a symptom of a disease. The disease is higher health care cost. You could treat cancer, the symptoms of cancer, but it'll eventually kill you. I know that. My family knows that. Many families in here and friends here know that. Eventually, it will kill you. So until we now there's some cancers that people have been in remission for a long time. But if you want to fix PEIA, you must address the problem, which is higher health care cost. Ted Cheatham said in the past, it was, I think, reported in a periodical or newspaper, that the Affordable Care Act cost PEIA $30 to $40 million. That's a federal issue we have very little control of. However, we do have control of some of the very anti-competitive things that prevent competition in health care services in the state of West Virginia. Some of you probably, if you've heard this explanation in the past on this floor by me, I'm going to repeat it for those who didn't. In 1974, the federal government passed a law that required every state in the country to pass a certificate of need law if they wanted to get federal dollars for health care. The unusual thing is the federal government, the U.S. Congress, 13 years later, realized they erred their ways and repealed that law in 1987. West Virginia, complying with that 74 law, passed a certificate of need process in the state of West Virginia that has a wide variety of health care services that are under that law. In 77, they passed that. It's never been repealed. It's never been repealed. 15 other states have, since 87, repealed their certificate of need laws, or at least mostly repealed. 15 of them have completely repealed them. Others have repealed most of the health care services that fall under that law. I'll give you one example that still has certificate of need, except for, like, I think in nursing homes and psychiatric hospitals, is Oklahoma. Oklahoma is also home of a place, the Oklahoma Free Market Surgery Center, that they do surgeries and they list their prices online. Wouldn't it be beautiful if you knew what your hospital was going to charge you for the procedure you had before you went in there, so you knew what you were going to have to come out of your pocket for? I'd like to see that. When you go buy a car, you get to see that. Well, in West Virginia, you don't get to see that. They actually do surgeries in Oklahoma at this place for less than the Medicaid reimbursement rates. There's a paradigm in this country, in this state, and in this body that thinks that you can't have a free market healthcare system. Well, you can if you don't start to take, we got here incrementally. We need to return to more of a free market healthcare system incrementally. Because that's how you address cost. That's how you address cost, by having competition. In Berkeley County, as an example, when I was born in 1969, I believe there were 2 hospitals in Berkeley County, City Hospital and King's Daughters Hospital, with a population of maybe 20, 25,000 people in Berkeley County. Today, with over 110,000 people in Berkeley County, there's 1 game in town. 1 game in town. It's now known as Berkeley Medical Center, WVU Hospitals East. Now, you wonder why this body is not taking any action on certificate of need? I'll tell you why. The powerful lobby, the very powerful lobby down here. WVU is one of them. WVU has probably spends in excess of $1 million on lobbying down here. And WVU Hospitals controls a large portion of our healthcare services industry in the state of West Virginia. So you wonder why your PEIA is forced to go up. There's not too many places you need to point the fingers at. By the way, just a little note that probably none of you know about, but in 1954, a soda tax was put on in the state of West Virginia to build a hospital in Morgantown for the WVU Medical School. Guess where that soda tax still is? That hospital was paid for probably 3 decades ago. But WVU still gets that soda tax. You want to know why you don't get pay raises? There's one example. There's an old phrase that I've been told many times by my grandfather: you can't get more blood out of a turnip. Now, teachers, if you were hired between 1994 and 1999, you will spend your career, and I do mean your whole career, paying for the sins of the past prior to probably, the late 80s, early 90s. Because guess what? Your pension plan, definitely the retirees' pension plan, was only funded about 9% back in those days. 9%. That was a time in the Capital Administration that the state of West Virginia had troubles paying their bills. And I mean they had trouble paying their bills. People didn't get paid sometimes for probably 60 to 90 days. They had money owed to them from the state. Today, as in the current budget budget year we are in right now, $344 million in the school aid formula goes to an unfunded liability in the TERS plan, what you know as your teacher's pension plan. A little over $70 million also goes into the retirement plan, and that's if you assume that the pension was fully funded. That's how much they would have to put in. It's about 72 or 74 million. Can't remember right off the top of my head. So when you add these two numbers up, the $344 million and the $70-some million, that's 38.1% of your salaries that you would find in the school aid formula go towards your pensions. Now, if that was really going towards your pensions if you're an active teacher, if that was going to your pensions in the form of a 401k as an active teacher, and you did that for about 20 years, 20 years, you made 8% in an S&P 500 fund, you'd have over $1 million in your 401k. Do you think you will ever have $1 million for your retirement? So I ask you, nobody wants to talk about this. Everybody says it's stealing from the pensions, stealing from the TERS fund. There's a bill that the gentleman from Kanawha down there has that would allow you to get a 6% raise right now and put some more money in the PEIA. It's been squandering because some people from both sides of the aisle says you can't do it. The actuarial numbers on that, by extending the terms of the pension 15 years, frees up about $2.36 billion. And just to give you a little, my analysis is somebody with a graduate degree in business and know how to read financial statements. West Virginia as a state, from a perspective of a balance sheet perspective, is in excellent shape compared to every state in the union, or most states in the union. We're probably in the top 5. Rainy day fund, our pension systems are now caught up to a great degree. For instance, the teacher's retirement that I mentioned is almost 70% funded now. When I came into the legislature 6 years ago, it was, I think, just a little bit under 50% funded. So there's no concern that you'll ever not get your pensions. But what I'm saying is, we could free up $2.36 billion. And in that same period, it only cost us $1.54 billion. So I've addressed PEIA, that it's just the cancer. The cancer, of course, being the health care cost. I've addressed the way for you to get a better raise, because I don't think that anybody that's been hired 94 to 90, and even thereafter, you're going to spend the majority of your career paying for the sins of the past. Don't you think you shouldn't have to pay? By the way, it's sort of like refinancing a house. The only difference is you hope to have your house paid for by the time you retire. The difference is the state has been around for 150-some years now, right? Hopefully the state lives in perpetuity forever. So don't you think it's right that some of our, it's only right that you get yours now instead of having to wait. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Jonathan 50th, Caputo.
Day two, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen, day 2 of a 55-county walkout that I think could have easily been averted if we would have just showed some respect to the people that take care of our children and our roads and educate our kids every day. It could have been averted. The minority party offered amendments that could have prevented all this. We offered fair pay raises that could have been paid for. And we offered a solution to PEIA that would have worked. Today, under executive messages, the governor signed into law Senate Bill 267. I don't know if the folks in the gallery heard that, but that's the Christmas ham my friend from the 55th has been referring to. He signed that into law. It's an old labor song, and it says, which side are you on? Which side are you on? There are no neutrals here. I think we've clearly demonstrated who is on the side of teachers and who is on the side of school service personnel and who is on the side of workers. We demonstrated that not with our words only, but with our actions as well. I believe you all have been disrespected by the people you elected as your representatives in some areas of this state. One of the labor leaders outside today said, I'm going to refer to you all as educators. And I never thought about this. But even if you're not in the classroom and you're driving those children to school on that school bus, Delegate, you lend a hand to that child when that child needs a hand. And you try to steer that child in the right direction. And you look out after that child. I have a sister-in-law who's a custodian in a middle school in Marion County, and I know she cares as much about those kids as anybody in that school. And she brings them little treats and looks out for them, and those who are less fortunate get a little Christmas gift from her. She's an educator as well because she cares about those children. I don't know what else we can do. I don't know how long this strike is going to last. But don't think for a second that something still can't be done. I've seen things move through this House, across the hall to the Senate, and on the governor's desk in a day. In a day. So don't let anybody tell you it can't be done because we already passed that bill, because that is bunk. That is bunk. The business and inventory tax, which we heard about a little while ago, that everybody thinks is going to be the salvation for West Virginia. I'm willing to talk about that. I'll talk about that after and only after we take care of the educators in the state of West Virginia. That's when I'll talk about that. Our priorities are wrong here, ladies and gentlemen. Those who set the agenda and steer the ship, their priorities are wrong. And only you can change that. Under our rules, today is the last day that we'll be allowed remarks by members like you're hearing from this floor today. So we won't be able to get up and address this issue as often as we have been throughout this session because of a House rule. But we will address you on the picket line. We will address you in the halls. We will address you anywhere you want us to address you. And I also want to caution you once again. Under remarks by members, you heard a lot of nice things said about you by a lot of people in this House. I encourage each and every one of you, go home, see how your delegate voted on your issues. Because I've seen some remarks come from over there, and some folks in the gallery stood up and felt real good and clapped. They didn't vote with you. They didn't vote with you. But you're smart people. You're educators. And I know you're going to do your homework. And you're going to see how your delegate voted on your issues. So even though this is the last day for remarks by members of the House, I want you to know you've got a lot of friends here. You've got a lot of friends here. The only problem is you don't have 51. God bless you. Keep up the fight.
John from 42nd, Delegate Campbell.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The labor movement is alive and well in West Virginia. We have 2 weeks left. What are we going to do with it? The next 2 weeks could define the next 20 years of our state. West Virginia's public employees are sick and tired of being sick and tired. These people know what hard times are all about. We have public employees in West Virginia on food stamps. We can do better than this, and we must do better than this. They don't need to be told to get a second job. Most already have second and third jobs. They're not looking for a handout. All they want is a fair, competitive wage. This is a grassroots campaign that started in southern West Virginia. And referring to Dale Lee and Christine Campbell as union bosses is comical. There are some people who'd have you think Dale and Christine were John L. Lewis and Mother Jones. And if you know who they are, thank a teacher. Now, some people may think this is funny, but there's nothing funny when we're messing with people's lives. One of my favorite parts of our floor sessions is how we meet here before starting and talk like friends. There are some delegates across the aisle that I know will be friends of mine long after our service here ends. The labor issues in our state shouldn't be political. We need to stop focusing on that one letter at the end of our name and start focusing on the two letters of our state, WV. We must find solutions now, because if you think the crowds here over the last 2 days are big, just wait, there's more. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
John for the 51st, Doug Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I ask unanimous consent that the remarks made by the gentleman from the 3rd, the 13th, the 34th, the 50th, the 55th, the 36th, and the 42nd be printed in the appendix of the journal, and I realized I was a little fast on that. Would you want me to go again? Okay.
If you'll just provide that to the clerk. Without objection, remarks be printed in the appendix of the journal. John 36, Doug Robinson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I was sitting here enjoying my friend, the gentleman from the 3rd's comments about, we haven't seen the governor a whole lot lately. But I also read a report earlier that the governor's doing some media interviews today. And I thought I'd read you a quote. Now, he says, the teachers should just go home. Trust me, I'll fix it. Now, I'm going to go back to my friend, the gentleman from the 3rd. He just says, just trust us. We'll fix everything, right? I don't think that's right. Now, it doesn't do us a whole... I like you all being here. It puts a little pressure on all of us in the building. But in regards to the governor, it doesn't do a whole lot of good to pick it here when the governor's not here a whole lot. So I would introduce you to your home. This is your home. And I welcome you to come back next week and the week after until people realize this is your home. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
John for the 15th, Doug Foster.
Unanimous consent that the remarks by the gentleman from the 7th be printed in the appendix of the journal as well.
Without objection, remarks be printed in the appendix of the journal. Further remarks? Miscellaneous, gentleman from the 50th, Doug Caputo.
Unanimous consent that the remarks by Delegate Robinson from the 36th be printed in the appendix of the journal.
Without objection, remarks be printed in the appendix of the journal. Miscellaneous business. Gentleman for the 58th.
Mr. Speaker, subject to announcements, I move the House adjourn until 11 a.m. on Monday.
Are there announcements? John from 64th, Doug Householder.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Committee on Finance will resume its labor at 2:30 today. The agenda is posted.
John from 33rd, Doug Hanshaw.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Committee on Judiciary will resume the posted agenda upstairs at 3 o'clock this afternoon, and we'll meet Monday morning at 9 a.m. We'll have the agenda for that meeting posted over the weekend. Thank you.
John from the 51st, Doug Stadler.
Mr. Speaker, your Committee on Education will meet Monday, February the 26th at 2 p.m. in the Education Committee room. The agenda will be posted.
John from the 48th, Doug Hamrick.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Committee on Government Organization will meet Monday, February 26th at 3 p.m. in the House Government Organization Committee Room 215E. The agenda will be posted.
Further announcements? If not, question for the House.
Mr. Speaker.
Gentleman for the 58th.
Mr. Speaker, the Rules Committee will meet at 10:45 a.m. on Monday behind the chamber.
Question for the House is the motion by Gentleman 58 that the House stand adjourned until 11 a.m. on Monday. All in favor will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. Declare the House adjourned until 11 a.m. on Monday.